Hello and welcome everyone. How are we doing today? Hey Kana. Happy Monday. Happy buff day. Vivian is already sleeping on her heated bed nearby. She's very cute. Thank you, Vint, my loyal apprentice for 19 months. It's buffin' time, yeah. Oh, cute yawn, Vivi. She stuck her leg out and then she yawned. She's cleaning herself and grumbling. As one does as a cat. Hello, Fearless Halo. How are you doing? Hope everyone's doing well today. So I thought today we could watch the buff, have a chat about it, and then maybe look at some Curious Cat questions, read those out, have a talk about them. I don't know how long I'll do that for. I don't know if that'd be the whole stream, because chatty streams I do eventually, they'll start to wear on my voice a bit. So we'll see how I do. Hey Jay, how you doing? We have a 3-hour drive tomorrow. Oh gosh. Might not be able to watch the stream for an entire week. Oh, that's okay. Actually 2 weeks. I hope that you have a safe trip and everything goes well. Kinda sluggish today, it's very cold. Feeling a little on the tired side too, honestly, yeah. But I'm gonna get buffed. I'm sure that hanging out with you all will be energizing for me. It was a rainy day here as well, so it wasn't super cold, but it was rainy. Farringdon. Is that for school or family? Oh, you don't have to say though if you don't want. Just curious. What makes you go faster? Rain makes me really relaxed and sleepy, so yeah. You'd think like it rains so much where I'm from, originally, that it would have no effect on me, but I guess since I've been living here so long, it doesn't rain very much here comparatively. I think it reminds me of home and makes me feel cozy. Imagine hell now, add posh and green everywhere. It's Farringdon. Going for uni. Oh, okay. Hope that goes well. Drive in the cold. That's good then. Well, not so good during the summer, but at least you have a season that you enjoy. Winter is too cold for me and summer is too hot for me, so I just have to layer up a lot in the winter and I have heated clothes if I need it. Vivian still ready motorcycle in the house. Yeah, some people with loud mufflers to come by. Broken mufflers, I should say. Some people are lunatics. I think some people just want to be on the beach all the time. That's my theory. Swimming in the ocean where there's currents coming from Antarctica, it's very refreshing. That's what I used to do. Hey, Ticketonic! Bringing summer out of the bane. Yeah, because of allergies. At least for winter, all the trees are sleeping, so you don't have to worry about them. Don't have to worry about all the pollen. Going outside? Yeah, some people do that. I know, it's weird. I saw 2 cats the other day when we took a walk outside, and a neighbor's dog ran up to us. The neighbor wasn't very pleased, but we were pretty pleased. The dog was named Bowie, and I think it might have been a girl dog. And she was kind of like that kind of like orangey brown color. And she had short hair, so I thought it would be quite coarse, but she was surprisingly soft. So I was kind of curious about what kind of mix she was. Why would I leave the safety of my house? See the ape exhibit when I can watch them from the window? I know, you can just like look at live cams of animals in zoos now. You don't have to leave your house. You've taken away all incentives. Dillarex, hello, how are you doing? Allergies and heat, yep. Bad combo. Being stuffed up and also sweaty, it's like the worst of both worlds. Oh, you mean people? Aww. Aww. I thought you were talking about like the cams with like the nesting birds and stuff and like the wildlife cams. Those are fun. No, we love people. People are great. You're all great. Shall we watch some Buff? See an 8 from your window? Don't live near the zoo, mate. Well then. Okay. So today's Buff is about, it's called Discouragement. It's specifically about creating despite discouragement. So that was the suggestion, was kind of like, how do you know, push through with people pushing back on you creating? Like, how do you deal with criticism? How do you deal with the naysayers, the haters, if you will? Every time I lived close enough to the zoo that I could hear the lions roar all the time. Yeah, they were so loud. Okay, let's watch the Buff. Let me know if I need to adjust the volume. Hello and welcome to the Weekly Buff. I am Mage Vivica. This week I would like to discuss creating despite discouragement. Please remember that my buffs are offered freely without expectation or judgment. Creating is a very vulnerable task. We are taking an idea or concept that we have dreamt up and trying to capture the essence of it in the physical world. Manifesting our ideas into reality is a difficult and often painful task. We may not yet have the skill to create the work exactly as we feel it should be, to do it justice. And we may see every flaw in it even before sharing it with anyone at all. But destruction. Ah, how easy it is to destroy. Simply pointing out an error or flaw can be enough to let the wind out of a creative person's sails. And now we have the internet, that simultaneously beautiful gift and dreadful curse, where anyone might anonymously ravage the works we put forth. The point is not to create perfection, not even to make our creations faithful to the idea in our mind's eye, but to create our unique works. It may not be perfect, likely it never will be, but it will be ours. None other can create the same thing that we might, with all its impressive qualities and endearing flaws. And it is as only we can make it. If another says that they would have done this or that differently, well, they are free to create something of their own. This is what we made. This is ours. This is the way that it is. It is perfectly flawed and joyously unique. Putting forth the best of us in defiance of the anxiety that demands more is a glorious practice. I encourage it wholeheartedly. See you next week. Thank you for this moment. Take care. I had a mid-buff wink. Okay. Close that out so I don't accidentally stop playing something. Yes, Vince's favorite line. Destruction. I would have done this. You did it then. Go off, yo. Exactly. Said discouragement, and all I can think of is a lowly tarnish playing as a lord. Lay these foolish ambitions to rest. Yeah, everyone tries to discourage you in that game pretty much, huh? Like even people that become allies at first, they kind of discourage you. I guess unless you meet Rani like in the first place you're meant to. Apparently she's quite nice. If you do, but I didn't, so oh well. We worked it out in the end. Yeah, I thought that was a good one to make because a lot of people in the community, very creative people. We've got artists, we've got musicians, we've got other streamers, we've got all kinds of creativity. So I thought that would be a good one to just kind of get my thoughts out there because I don't struggle so much with external forces to do with creativity. I don't worry so much about how my work will be received personally. I've kind of come to terms with that, and so I thought maybe my thoughts on that would be helpful for people just to have that perspective. Because there's no like one right way to think about these things. So if anyone has any suggestions of how they deal with those feelings or any questions about my thoughts or things like that. Thanks for the look, Kimmy. I hope you're doing well. Easily discouraged, Vint. I encourage you as much as I can. Joke's on you. Can't discourage me if I do it myself. But then are you able to work through that? Oh, thank you, Kimmy. And actually still create? Or is that just a matter of you just stop yourself? Because we still want to be able to create. It's just a matter of finding a way through those thoughts and feelings. Yeah, I was talking to Vent about like motivation to create. Thank you, Vanik. 19 months. It's amazing. Thank you so much for your support. I hope you're doing well. I do the thing? Okay, good. Just expect the worst outcome to be more excited when it becomes a better outcome. Yeah, I think that keeping one's expectations from getting out of control can be good. Perfectionism can be very much a killer of creativity if we expect that everything will be perfect. I tried to address that a little bit in the buff and kind of saying, it's okay to not be perfect. It's unique. It's the creation that only you could create. No one else could have made it the exact same way that you did. So it has value in that regard. Hey Bucklewater, how you doing? Hairline? Can't leave without making that hairline perfect. Oh, I see. In reality, I would have done this instead. I tend to look at that without the snark or whatever there might be and try to look at it from that angle, like, would that actually improve it? Is it in line with what I was trying to do? Do I understand why they would do that instead, etc.? Yeah, that can be helpful to see someone else's perspective. I think there's kind of two types of criticism, right? There's criticism that actually has some sort of insight, some sort of perspective from outside of ourselves, and of course we can only see things from our own perspective. So it can be valuable to look at what other people think about our work. Generally that's most helpful, most valuable when it's solicited. Usually unsolicited tends to be less respectful, less insightful, maybe a bit more emotional or a bit more simple, not detailed, just someone saying, oh, that sucks. It doesn't really help me. Like, what sucks about it? What didn't you like about it? Like, tell me more, give me information. That would be helpful, but just saying I didn't like it. Why didn't you like it? Done a bit better at taking negative feedback and extracting the ways I can improve something. Sometimes the criticism is just dumb or asking me not to be me. Yeah, sometimes people will say, oh, I don't like this about this thing that you've made. And I'll say, I did that purposefully. That was a feature, not a bug. And they might not have liked that approach, but it was an exercise in creativity for me, was using that particular technique, mechanism, whatever you want to call it. Even if I just decide that it's short-sighted or dismissive, that just kind of helps you reinforce why you did it the way you did, whatever it is. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I think too, it can help you to reinforce, like, okay, so they didn't get why I did it the way I did, so maybe I can refine my approach a little bit and make it a bit more clear that it's purposeful and intentional, not like a flaw, like it's actually something that was intentional. Mostly looking, but good luck today. The buff was really nice. Oh, I'm glad that you enjoyed it, Rosalia. Thank you. Thank you for the look. I hope you're doing well. Vince making noise in the background and Vivian is cleaning herself, so she's like sitting with her tongue sticking out. It's really cute. One problem I had more early on was I knew my stuff was uniquely mine, but I also didn't like what it uniquely was. Do you like it more now, or have you adapted your work in a way that you do like it? I always looked up to my father, and honestly, I didn't establish a personality myself until recent years. I generally used to worry about straying from the path that successful people around me are taking, reaching to a point where I feared paving my own path. I think that's a pretty easy trap to fall into, is sort of seeing the people around you who might have done well in specific ways and having them, even if they don't dictate to you directly, they don't just say like bluntly like you have to do things the way I did, or you have to go into this profession, you have to yada yada yada. They might still kind of indicate that this is what they approve of in some way, so I can definitely understand how that trap could be easy to fall into, yeah. Vaguely okay with it now? I love your writing. I'm excited to see what you write. Vivian is now in my sleeve, she's purring. I wish I could share that sound with you, but it's not loud enough to be picked up by the mic. I wonder if you could get like... I was just thinking, you know how people have those like collar mics, but they have wires, I think. Like the ones that you clip to your shirt collar for interviews and stuff. I was thinking if I could clip one of those to Vivian's collar, but I don't think that would work. Fridge is buzzing again. The fridge, for some reason, when the ice maker gets full, it will start to do this weird buzzing thing, and I have to like empty it a little. Being in a very successful environment with family members that play big roles in society can be very stressful. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure. Different types of family dynamics have different kinds of pressure, and I imagine that a family that is full of like highly educated, highly qualified people that have important jobs and things like that, it would be a lot of pressure to kind of live up to a certain standard of being kind of important in that same way. For example, 2 years ago when I failed my third year of uni, my heart sunk. It was like the first time I've ever gotten this low. Yeah, that's hard. I hope that people are supportive around you and not too demanding, and understand that you're just human and you will not always be perfect. Hey Duck! Thank you for the raid. How was Dark Souls 2? Sorry about Luca Teal. She was sneaky hidden waifu. I feel really out of it being around them, not gonna lie. That's fair. I mean, they might also not be particularly... what's the word? They might not have a lot of interpersonal like skills if they feel like make you feel kind of disconnected like that. They might not be good at emotionally connecting, but I don't know them, so I can't really. It's just speculating. It's really irritating. Oh, I'm sorry. I definitely looked up a guide for Lucatiel because I knew that she was tricky to track. Family is overachievers, and I'm definitely off on my own corner next to them. Yeah, it's hard comparing ourselves, especially when it's family, because you kind of feel like, well, genetically I'm similar to them. I was raised in a similar way, so shouldn't my outcomes be similar? Not necessarily. You might not want the same things, you might not be able to achieve the same things in the same way that they do, and that's okay. I want to know what makes it worse. I'm the only guy in the family that passes down family name. I only have one uncle and he doesn't have kids. Oh, is the family name a big thing in your household? Oh, extra pressure. My family was never big on that kind of stuff. They were not very traditional. Apparently a certain boss doesn't count. Benhart? Oh. See. You're trying to 100% it, right? Most people are. I'm starting to come to terms with it. Come to terms with people being overachievers. I don't think most people are overachievers. Bloodline is ending here. I mean, women can keep their names if they want now. If it's really important to them, they can hand their name down to their children. You know, this is 2022, guys. It's all good. You don't have to stick to this idea that we just give the name of the male person. You know, because we don't have to like prove we have genetic testing now if you're really worried about that kind of thing. It's actually more certain that you're related to your mother, because like you can't really dispute that very easily. But yeah, I don't think that kind of pressure is really necessary these days. I think all kinds of people are valuable in the world, and we need all kinds of different people doing different things. We need doctors and nurses and physicists and artists and bakers and everything. We need all of the stuff that people want to do. Very uncomfortable being at a table full of successful people and then you just have me. I think that honestly success for me, I don't just count it as like financial like wealth, like financial fitness, income, or how important your job title is, like whether you have a doctorate or you know, how many people are relying on you in a workplace or whatever. Like I don't think that stuff is really the only definition of success. I think there are a lot of definitions of success, and we can make our own and decide what's valuable to us and focus on that. Feel shame being around them. Do you feel like they reinforce that, or do you feel like it's mostly coming from you comparing them? Sometimes like people will reinforce things unconsciously, like subtle cues, like maybe ways that they reacted to you, like when you mentioned you're having difficulty at uni and stuff. Like I feel like some people can just kind of give away their inner thoughts without necessarily voicing them. It can be kind of obvious. They do. Father said it himself. He gave up on me. Oof, that's not good. And he has both my sisters, so he can boast about them. Well, yeah, let him boast about them. I mean, that's really rough. He shouldn't have said that. That's not good parenting, but I think that you're great, and I think that you will find happiness and you will find your own version of success that doesn't necessarily have to be dictated by your father, because, you know, he's just one person. He's just one man. He's not a monolith. He won't be around forever.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't quite put it that way, Vint, but yes, I would say that wasn't stellar parenting. No. Sometimes I wonder if some parents think that once a child is grown, they kind of just treat them like a friend, but no, you're still the parent. You still have to be responsible and mature and not say stuff like that. Jokes on her, always be my mom's side. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're only half him, you're half her, so it makes sense that we're not all gonna take after both of our parents, because usually parents are very different from one another. Usually. Sometimes not. So yeah, that was the buff. Should we do some Curious Cat? Where my issue of staring people in the eye comes from? Did she do that? She a starer. Okay. I think we go over here. Should be... Oh. There we go. Okay, I'm just gonna try and change the title. Oh, I only have one arm because the cat's on my sleeve. Curious Cat. A chat. Okay. I don't know if Twitch minds ampersands and titles, but I did one anyway. Oh right, I don't have any music on this scene. Maybe I should copy it from the other scene. Oh, I can actually insert it. Okay, Vent? Nisiko, how you doing? My bit notification broke. Eh? Let me have a look at that. So it just didn't come up? Sorry, I'm just looking into it. Oh my goodness, thank you for the best, Nisiko. Let me test it. um, I typed in 2000 bits in the test. Was that, did it not work? I did a cheer event. That should be bits. Sorry, when I typed the 2000, I muted myself because 0 is my mute. My mic mute. So I muted myself, unmuted myself, muted myself again. So did it show dollars? It should have shown bits. I'm gonna test it again, I wanna see. It's cheer event. Yeah, that's not a dollar sign. I don't think it is. 1K bits. Show dollars. But I used the cheer one. Oh, must have used the tip one accidentally. I thought I selected cheer. Oh well, anyway. Hopefully it will work. I don't know. You know what? Let's try actually one thing really quick. Where is it? Sound alerts. I'll try refreshing. Just to see if that resolves it, because I know we have a lot of issues with the alerts, so. I relinked it and refreshed it, so hopefully that will fix it. I'll try just testing it. The test still works. I don't know if the actual events work, but it's... Oh, okay. It works now. So we had to do then. Find a music box in an abandoned asylum, do not play it. Oh, really? Why not? Will something fun happen? Especially when it's inside a pentagram. Oh. Tiny hat mode has expired. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Doc. It works, it does. Something fun did happen? Oh, really? I'm gonna see if I can take my arm out of my sleeve without disturbing the cat so I can zoom in. Is that a bit more legible? That's pretty good. If I make it bigger, then I'll be covering it, but also it's still not that big. It's because you weren't the victim. I see, I see. Well, let's read some Curious Cat questions. I'll try and read it from my OBS so I don't have to Alt-Tab, but we'll see how that goes. Text is still pretty small. Is it legible for you on stream or is it too tiny? You can try and adjust it if it's still too tiny. Friend's neck got socially distant from his body. Legible? Okay, great. So I have a Curious Cat, if you are not aware, where you can submit questions, buff suggestions, comments, feedback, whatever you like. It can be anonymous. Most people select that because then you don't have to have an account or anything. It's just more convenient. You just have to select the radio button when you submit to do it anonymously. It's pretty obvious. It's on the left hand side. But yeah, I'm gonna read a few Curious Cat questions and answers. Some of them are quite heavy topics and really long answers from me. Some of them are quite lighthearted. So I'll try and get into a mix of those. So this one is the latest one that I got, which is from someone anonymous, as they probably all will be. Making sure I didn't cut any of the top of it off. So the question is, I feel like I can't be funny on stream because I'm always worried about offending people and getting cancelled and having my life ruined by strangers on the web. How do I overcome this? I know I'm a content creator at heart, but I can't find any good ways to overcome this fear of being online because of brittle-eared people. So this is something that obviously everyone who puts out things online has to contend with in some way. So I feel like it's pretty commonly held concern. So my response was, I see two parts to this anxiety. Part one is the feelings themselves, and part two is the perception of others. Working on the anxiety is certainly well within our control. Some practices that might help are grounding techniques when anxiety comes up, self soothing if the anxiety feels overwhelming, if it stops us from going live at all, mindfulness techniques, things like really focusing on the sensory information when drinking tea, coffee, or eating our normal meals, doing chores, etc., and taking general care of our physical and mental health with good sleep, nutrition, regular exercise, and so on. Also asking ourselves, what is the worst case scenario? What would my options be if that worst case scenario came to pass? The human mind really likes to prepare for things, which is why we learn very well through stories. So this idea of I'm going to say something and then there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to mob me, flame me, try and cancel me. What would be the worst thing that could happen with that? Like really thinking it through. What would you do? What would the options be? Because that is something that's also known as catastrophizing. So assuming the worst, assuming that whatever the worst thing we can imagine is what's going to happen. So thinking about what the actual reality of that would be can actually be helpful in kind of dispelling it a little bit. To be honest, I deal with that one way. I'm gonna send it in a meme and meme chat. Fair enough. Thanks, Kana. And so that's the part of the anxiety part, the part that's well within our ability to work on. But that's a bit more complicated. Look at that meme. That's funny. I like it. I'll share it. Save and OBS. Image. Sorry, Vivi. Moved my arm wrong. She got mad. Well, not mad. She jolted. This was the meme that Connor shared. We Gora, let people enjoy things strong, Gora. It's having cringe. People can enjoy things. I love enjoying things. I'm enjoying things right now. Thanks, Connor. Okay, so the second part was about other people's perceptions of us, which is not something that is so well within our control, is it? We can't really dictate how people think or feel about us. The second part is less within our own control. We can't dictate how other people perceive us or how they interpret our actions or words. That can feel frustrating and scary. What I would suggest considering is, why am I streaming? Why am I telling jokes? Am I trying to make people laugh so they feel good? If so, is my humor perhaps in need of a review? Are my jokes still in line with the sensibilities of the audience I'm likely to attract? Younger generations, on the whole, tend to be more socially conscious and conscientious. They tend to enjoy humor at the expense of others less than humans generally have in the recent past. That's a big generalization. I know there are people that still enjoy like edgy humor at the expense of others, but for the most part, I would say people are less interested in jokes, racist, sexist, misogynistic, all those kinds of things. They're not as popular as they once were, which is good in my opinion. Honestly, I do it within respectful standards. If I see myself overstepping someone's comfort by doing what I like and it's actually a valid reason, I will apologize. But to sacrifice my pleasure for theirs, I'll simply avoid them. Yeah, that's fair. Not everyone will have the same sensibilities and the same sense of humor. I think that's valid. I don't think we need to force ourselves to keep company with people that we really just don't meld with, but we don't vibe. They just don't match the vibe. And so I went on to say, if we're interested in personal growth and learning, then it goes a long way to state outright that we are aware that we will not always be right, that we will do our best to offer patience and kindness to those around us, and we hope to be afforded the same treatment. If we do or say something that others find offensive, then we invite them to respectfully inform us, and we intend to listen and check our defensiveness while listening, considering, and responding, and work to better ourselves, where we see valid criticism. The valid criticism is important. We're not just taking everyone's comments and everything without any context and just accepting that it's the truth. We have to see value in the criticism, because obviously we're not going to change if we don't think that it's a valid point, right? Everyone in their own lane when it suits, yeah. For example, I don't get along with my cousin. Her cousin is wicked. Yeah, not everyone's going to be our people. Hey, Lucas. Same as Kyle, and on our first meeting, I literally just went, WTF is up, Kyle. That's cool. It's nice when you kind of just meet people and you just click straight away. I like that. There will always be some people who are not able to communicate respectfully or let go of a perceived slight when an apology has been offered and we've made it clear that no offense was intended. That's part of the risk of what we're doing. That risk is worth the reward of all the amazing interactions that we'll have with people personally, and that's not to diminish how monumental that risk can feel at times. Having a plan for how to deal with people who won't let go of an issue or who attempt to begin a smear campaign can be helpful in feeling prepared for that unlikely event. Just because some people are grumbling about us, it doesn't mean that it will grow into an overwhelming avalanche of people who can drown out all the support we also enjoy. We don't have to listen to the naysayers if they are only repeating themselves with points we have already appropriately addressed. At that point, they are unable or unwilling to listen, and so further effort would be wasted on trying to communicate with them. The internet being mad at you is unpleasant, but sometimes you're in a position where you can let the internet be mad. Yeah, there's always going to be someone on the internet that doesn't like what we have to say. There's always going to be people that will tell others, don't talk about that topic, don't talk about this topic. I liked you better when you were not talking about politics, not talking about whatever it is that they didn't want you to talk about. I feel like to some degree that's less likely to happen with my audience because I make it pretty clear that I have opinions and I'm not shy about sharing them. I share them every Monday. But I do try to keep the way I express myself accessible, so I'm not attacking people, I'm not trying to single anyone out. I'm trying to call people in, not call them out. But that's just my personal preference on how to address things, and not everyone will take that approach. And people that take that as a sign that I will just go along with everything, yeah, they're missing the point. Love that call people in talk. Yeah, that was good. I actually asked what I'm doing at the front of my parents' house on what I'm doing and why I'm doing it here by a new person in the neighborhood. I told them this is my parents' house, and they said, "No, it isn't." Huh? Guess I'm not born here anymore. That's unnecessary. Wow, that person needs to butt out. Goodness, I hope they didn't give you any more trouble after that. But yeah, that was an interesting topic for me because it's certainly something I've thought about before. Like, what would I do if internet got mad at me. I've definitely considered that before because I'm putting myself out there, so I can feel vulnerable sometimes. But now I need to carry my birth certificate when I visit my dad now. Yikes. Honestly, like, I feel like I always have to have ID on me because USA, but I haven't really been ID'd in any kind of inappropriate situation. Probably because people don't question a blue-eyed white lady as much as they would other kinds of people, which it sucks. I have privilege and I'm fully aware of it, but yeah, people shouldn't have to prove that they belong where they are. You're not doing anything nefarious. That's just it's ridiculous. Didn't get mad at Vivica for buffing too much. Well, if that's a potentiality, then that's definitely going to happen someday. I did in high school because I'm too tall. I'm sorry, it's kind of funny though. You're too old to be here. Oh, wait, you're 15. Okay, carry on. Yeah, I've definitely had I had a high school friend who by I think about like 16, he had like a full beard, like full beard. He definitely used that to his advantage. He wasn't particularly tall, but he definitely had a full beard. Some people out there really acting like NPCs can be safely treated as such. Pretty much, pretty much. If you're gonna act like you have so little agency and so little thought in your head, then yeah, you'll be granted the same respect you deserve. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, Connor. So the next question that I got was about empathy and self-awareness. So I actually had to look up the definition of self-awareness for this one and kind of think about it for a bit. It's pretty interesting, actually. Beard is awesome, and yes, this is me bragging. Wow, I'm glad that you enjoy your beard, preposterous. That's great. So, is empathy required for something to be self-aware? So, self-awareness, there's like a bunch of different types of self-awareness and different definitions, and it's like a whole range of things that crosses like philosophy and like medical definitions, child developmental definitions, animal research. Like it's a huge area. So I kind of went over it briefly in my answer. Self awareness is a very broad term that can mean many things in different contexts. I'm going to make the assumption that you are referring to self awareness in the social and the relational context, such as being accountable for one's own actions and being able to reflect upon other people's feedback about us and perception of us. I think empathy likely helps with that, yes. I read that someone speculated that in a neuropsychological context, the mirror neurons are involved in self awareness. Mirror neurons are the part of the brain that allows us to wince when we see another person injured, for example. So it's a part of the brain that helps us to basically put ourselves in someone else's shoes. So have empathy for people that are being injured, feel sorry for someone, feel someone else's grief, basically mirror their emotions in a way. Pretty fascinating, really. Some mental health conditions and neuropsychological conditions do seem correlated with a deficit in self-awareness too. I would say that it likely helps, but it may be possible to be self-aware with diminished or absent empathy. It's likely much harder, as it seems the conditions and types of neurodivergence that involve lack of empathy are harder to address and recover from, but I want to believe it's still possible to become self-aware if empathy is lacking. So things like sociopathy, I think it is. Yeah, sociopathy. So if someone's a sociopath, that technically it's not a diagnosis. Sociopathy is symptom, usually of antisocial personality disorder, and it's marked by a lack of empathy. It could be diminished empathy or complete lack of empathy. But yeah, within that diagnosis, it's usually pretty extreme. So yeah, the way that I think about it is this kind of emotional empathy, and then there's like logical empathy, maybe I want to describe it as. Gerard, thank you for the follow. You're very welcome here. So like I can imagine what it's like to be in someone's shoes. Like I can imagine what it's like to be in a famine, like in a country where there's severe drought, all the crops are dying, and I am, wasting away. I can imagine that, but I've never experienced it. So it's harder for me to emotionally or physically know that sort of state. But I can cognitively put myself in that place and think, yeah, that would be really, really distressing. It would be so overwhelming. It would be so hard to deal with. Just completely terrible. But I don't have the experience of it, so it's a bit different. Science of sociopathy. You're super interesting. Wasn't expecting it to be so nuanced. Yeah. Some real decent sociopaths. Yeah, well, the thing is, if you don't have some of these ways that the brain works, so if you have complete detachment, you actually might be better at making certain decisions. It's difficult though, right? Because people often associate a sociopath or someone with antisocial personality disorder as being very selfish, very self-centered, maybe even violent or manipulative. And they definitely can be. But there are also people that go through life with these social deficits and they just put it to some kind of cause, some kind of good use, and they actually help people and they don't hurt people. It's one of those things where mental illness, mental wellness, if something is not distressing the person or people around them, it can't really be defined easily as a disorder because the definition of disorder is that it is affecting people in negative ways. Often, when people do have social deficits to do with empathy, they will be maybe even abusive to people around them. So they might not themselves understand or recognize that something is wrong, but the people around them hopefully will. Sometimes there's some enabling going on, but hopefully people around them will understand. But those types of conditions can be very difficult to treat because, as mentioned, the person that is experiencing the condition may not recognize that there is anything that needs to be changed. They may not think that they're in the wrong. They may not be able to admit that their behavior isn't right, isn't good. I know that some people that would weaponize your self-awareness against you, like making you self-aware towards literally stuff that make no sense in order to slowly manipulate you into doing stuff for them. Yeah, that's a thing too. I think it's a fine line between taking people's criticism and considering the merits of it, but obviously not just taking it wholesale and just overriding any of our own self-reflection and being totally closed off. I would never want to be totally closed off, but at the same time, sometimes people will give me feedback, and it may be so far out of what I know about myself and what trusted people tell me about myself, what trusted people like feedback they give me about myself, that it will give me pause, and I'll kind of think for a moment, like, does this have merit? And then I may even like ask someone that I trust their opinion. Like, this is what has been said to me. Do you think that there's any merit to this? And I can usually trust them to be honest with me in a gentle way. So I'm definitely always open to considering, but at the same time, there has to be a limit because, yeah, people definitely can use it against you and use invalid criticism in a way that is meant to manipulate you and control your behavior and your thoughts and feelings. Had a friend who's quite possibly one? Yeah, it's rough. It's really rough. Those kinds of relationships can be really damaging. I hope that everyone's doing well now. I think I'll skip this next one because a little vague. I wasn't quite sure what they were asking about, so I answered as best I could, but I'm still not sure if I was on the right track. Oh, this is a nice one. You don't mind me asking, how did you meet your apprentice? That would be Moonvale Vint. I said we met through a mutual hobby. We both enjoy creative writing. The website where we met with the accompanying chat rooms, IRC, if you're familiar with the ancient internet artifact, was based around the setting of Final Fantasy Tactics world. That's why my alternative outfit for my Life 2D model is a white mage robe in that FFT design style. I haven't actually played any FFT games, but we have had a lot of fun in the world fighting zodiac demons with our characters. Good old IRC. Yeah, that's where we met Bannock. FFT stream. What's it on? Switch? Yeah, and Mogs as well. I think I mostly interacted with Mogs at first on a forum that was set in Arthurian England, Arthurian Europe. But it was around the same time period, and we both were on the other forum as well. On PSP. Oh man. I don't know if I have it on PSP. Do you have it on PSP, Vent? Did we ever figure out if your PSP was bricked? I think it's fine now, right? I remember it wouldn't turn on at one point. You have it on PSP? Okay. I mean, I don't know if I'd like it that much. Is it the one that you like kept getting game overs because the difficulty spikes were just so insane? It's bad frame rate hits. Oof. Might not look that great to stream, honestly. Millennials also get that problem. Have my PSP, my 3DS, and my Game Boy. The classics. You know where the spikes are and how to counter them, then it's fine. Okay, you'll have to guide me through, I guess. I'll consider it. I'm not really big on strategy games. I think the only strategy games I've played were Red Alert and original World of Warcraft when it was still, top down strategy game. I think those are pretty much it. Always wanted a PSP? They're so good. I loved how small they were. I don't have very big hands. Like, I have long fingers, but, like, my hands are relatively small. And I get a lot of, like, wrist pain and carpal tunnel and stuff. So, PSP was, like, the perfect size. The Switch is too big for me. I feel like the PS Vita might have also been a little bit big, but the PSP is the perfect size for me. It's so comfortable to use. The only issue is the joystick is a little bit difficult to use because it's so low profile. If they had a way that you could like attach something to it to make it a bit less low profile, that would probably be good. But yeah, other than that, oh, and also that the off button was really close to where your hand is. So I would always like accidentally put it to sleep while playing. Those are the only two cons of it, I think, for me. I wish the system did better because it was always been fun. Yeah, I thought it was great. One famously bad trap spot on FFT that can put you in a soft lock, but the rest is kind of easier to mitigate a bit. Okay. Yeah. Well, if I have some guidance, I could probably get through. I think there is a fan fix to that issue. I never went after it. Oh, okay. Used to own a PSP. They're so good. They look so slick. Very cool design. Yeah. I like them. think I only have 2 games though. Oh. I have my hands that are big enough to cover the entire face of a child. Interesting imagery. Just want to remake. Are they looking at that? We all do. There are rumors of an FFT remaster remake. We haven't seen anything just yet, and probably won't until the Tactics Ogre remaster comes out. Okay. I only have a 3DS on my PC. Or Dreamcast somewhere around here. Oh, that might be worth money now, Preposterous, if it works. Imagery? Try it with your cousin. I see. You've got the proof. So yeah, that was how we met. Still going strong all these years later. This is a pretty short one. Just asking for a buff on Hikikomori. Hikikomori are basically shuttens. People in Japan, I guess you would call them neat in the US. No job, education, training, something. NEET. I can't remember the let me look it up really quick. Not engaged in education, employment, or training. So it's young adults or sometimes, adults. I think people are no longer considered young adults when they get to like 35. Yeah, not education, employment, or training. So often, unfortunately, in Japan, mental health is not very accepted. There's still a lot of stigma around mental health. So what will happen often will be that people will struggle with their mental health. They might struggle with depression, anxiety, all those kinds of things. In Japanese culture, there's also a lot of rigidity around socializing, social roles. Often men and women are separated for the entirety of their education, maybe all the way up until college, university, or maybe even still during college and university. So the first time they might have peers of the opposite sex would be when they go into the workforce. Um, Also, Japanese universities, colleges, whatever you want to call them, are notoriously competitive. There's a lot of pressure to get really good grades all throughout school, and especially college entrance exams, people can get a lot of anxiety because there's so much pressure. And as we're only human, there will be people that burn out, that can't overcome their mental health struggles just on their own, and they are not able to access care because in Japan, as I mentioned, it's very stigmatized. Often people will be hospitalized and there's no in between. There's not really, um, outpatient things. It's either you're so sick that you're in hospital or you go home and you get on with your life, which is really unfortunate. I hope that the awareness and the acceptance of mental health importance will improve over time in Japan. I hope that it will. But yeah, these people that are left behind, they're often young men, will become what's known as hikikomori shut-ins, people that they're not working, they don't socialize with others, they might stay in one room of their apartment or their parents' house for the majority of their day. They never go out, they don't socialize. Maybe they spend a lot of time online, they spend a lot of time on hobbies, lone hobbies, watching anime, reading manga, things like that. So yeah, it's a very, very difficult situation because a lot of these people, their family doesn't know how to help them. They don't know how to help themselves. Society is not accepting, and they are just kind of exiled. They've kind of exiled themselves, but you know, understandably, considering all the extenuating circumstances. Japan is like cogs in my eyes, to be honest. Living there is harsh but very rewarding after the hard work. Yeah, Japan has a lot of very strict ideas about how one should conduct oneself, what's polite and impolite, milestones in life. It's pretty rigid compared to what I'm used to. The US is actually more rigid than what I'm used to in that sense as well. New Zealand is a bit more, maybe it was more my family was a bit more wishy washy about that kind of stuff. Kind of do what you feel. You want to go to university, go. You don't want to go, don't go. you know, they weren't very rigid about that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, they're the collectivist society in which you mustn't inconvenience others. You mustn't be rude. You mustn't draw attention to yourself. You mustn't, there's a lot of rules, a lot of rules, and understandably, that can be very difficult for people who are not good at following so many rules all of the time, especially neurodivergent people. Um, Pen had for a long time a pretty big lag with acceptance about people, like people on the autism spectrum. They would just institutionalize them rather than give them assistance and occupational um, training and things like that they needed. So yeah, there's a lot there. I don't know if I did do a buff on it. I probably wouldn't do it specifically on hikikomori. I might mention them, but I don't live in Japan. I've never lived in Japan. All I know is from documentaries that I've watched and Japanese people talking about it. So I think that I'd probably try to make it more generalized to do with social anxiety, maybe some level of agoraphobia, isolation, that sort of thing. I did do a buff on isolation. I think it was like pretty early on in my buffs. Let's see. I added the link there.
Hello,
Yeah, number
and welcome.
7. So that was the one on isolation. Number 7. I guess we could watch that quickly. My voice a little rest and I can hydrate. I noticed how different my delivery is. I'm much more softly spoken in this. So enjoy my old delivery for a bit.
Hello, and welcome to the weekly buff. I am Mage Vivica. This week, I would like to discuss feeling isolated. Please remember that my buffs are offered freely without expectation or judgment. It is likely that most people have felt alone at some point or another. We need not even be alone, without the presence of others, to feel this way. Alone in the crowd, as the saying goes. Some of us may even prefer to be alone. When we are hurt, in any way, it is a natural instinct for many to withdraw to protect ourselves. Whether the harm is through words or actions, it can cause us to feel that we must retreat. This habit may even become comforting. Perhaps we may pride ourselves on our disdain for humanity. It is understandable to feel this way. I am profoundly comfortable alone. But as I have ventured from my mage tower more and more, I have found such joy in connecting with others. It took me time and much learning about myself, with the help of others, to reach the place I am now, where I can enjoy the company of so many people. But I feel it is certainly worth the effort. I still fear being misunderstood, at times, and I believe no one wishes to be misunderstood. But I have found people are so much more patient and understanding than I had ever expected them to be. There, if you are comfortable alone and feel no need to change, then I do not mean to suggest that you need to change at all. But if you decide to try something new, then I hope I can plant the seed for you that there are people who will cherish your company. See you next week. Thank you for this moment. Take care. Hello, and
Wait,
hello.
oh, Vivica, getting carried away. So yeah, that was my buff on isolation. It was pretty generalized, but I can probably do one more specifically on being isolated in that particular way. Sounded real cute back then. And now today she sounds just sounds cute. Also, I was real cute and I'm just cute. I was like more softly spoken, huh? Less confident maybe? I don't know. Just real cute. Thank you, Moa. All right, next question. So I had someone had a rough day, so I just gave them a little short buff. I said, buff, buff, buff. Great work getting through today. Please allow yourself a moment to breathe deeply. Moment now to breathe deeply and slowly, and remember that you will not always feel this way. Please take good care of yourself. I hope you have a moment of peace and of sweetness very soon. Like hearing a toddler ask for permission of something. Oh no. Thank you, Vent. The next one was short too. It's just not a question, just a fact. You are awesome. I said, haha, thank you. It's made me smile.
Buff, buff,
And
buff,
it
buff,
did.
buff, 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 buff.
Extra buffs. Thank you. Those are some short ones. So this is about, oh, let's see it. Things that we take for granted. What are some things humans take for granted? So the human mind ignores a lot of points by necessity. So if we thought about everything that we should appreciate all the time, we would have no time for anything else. I understand why people take many things for granted, but I will point some out to answer this question. Many safety measures we often take for granted: clean air, clean drinking water, indoor plumbing, modern medicine, having access to safe food, having access to a huge variety of food that won't even grow in our part of the world, how much we rely on knowledge for generations upon generation that came before us, and how agriculture has provided bigger, more appealing, more nutritious foods. I don't know if you're aware, but like take a carrot, for example. Carrots used to be like tree roots. Like they were really fibrous, not juicy at all. You'd have to like chew on them. Like if you've ever had sugar cane is really fibrous, but it has this sweet juice that people squeeze out of it and crystallize to make sugar. But it was more like sugarcane, was really, really fibrous. So you could really just kind of chew on it and spit it out. You couldn't really chew and swallow because it was just too tough. But now we have these big, juicy, bright orange carrots. Like you can get them in purple and orange and yellow and all kinds of things. And they're very, very nutritious. Way more nutritious than they ever were before. So that's something that I think a lot of people aren't even aware of, let alone take for granted. They don't even know. Another thing I said was how peaceful and safe much of the world is, though we still need to eradicate war and famine completely, compared to the not so distant past, and probably lots of other things that I'm not even aware of or able to think of right now. This place keeps getting more loving. I take for granted that I can't take stuff I do for granted. There's a challenge I hear. If it's sweet, it's entering my stomach. I mean, I don't think it would be very good for your digestion to have that much really tough fiber, but you could try it. Maybe puree it up first. But yeah, generally people will if you're eating sugarcane, quote unquote eating sugarcane, usually people will just take a piece of it and chew on it, get all of the flavor out, and then spit out the fibers because they're really, really tough fibers. I think it's so fascinating the development of agriculture over the years. Like if you look at apples, for example, like apples that you think of, like when you think of apple, what do you think of? Like a Red Delicious, Rayburn, Granny Smith, like these big, juicy, sweet usually, or sometimes tart in the case of like Granny Smith, green apples. You know, basically like They're like candy. But if you've ever seen a crabapple tree, that's what most apple trees are like. The ones that are the big, juicy, sweet ones, those are actually all clones of specific trees. You can't plant a seed from an apple that you get at the store and grow a proper tree. It would be a crabapple or like yeah, those little apples that are really tart. They don't have much flesh. People use them for cider, things like that. Um, so the ones that are the big, juicy, the brand name ones, the Red Delicious and stuff, they are actually all the same tree. What they do is they grow just like the normal crabapple tree, and then they cut down the tree and they graft onto it a cutting from the other tree. So you take like a Granny Smith cutting and you graft it onto the roots of the other tree, and then it will grow into a tree that bears that big green fruit. So apple, I think of cider. Yeah, it's a good use for those crab apples because they're not very edible on their own. Juicing them is usually the best use for them. When I think of apple, I just remember our chance of being in heaven being thrown out with a bite. That's interesting too, right? People always kind of um, imagine the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden as an apple. But apparently, the Bible never actually states that it was an apple. It just says fruit. It doesn't specify what type of fruit. I think it's media that's depicted it as an apple that has made people associate it with apples. How they try and make new types of fruits and nuts. Yeah, it's like cross pollination and things like that. It's really interesting. There's also a reason why I've probably gone off on this tangent about Gros Michel before, but fake banana flavor, how it's very, very banana. And the bananas that we eat today, they don't taste as strong. They don't taste anywhere near the same. They're much more bland. Well, there was a type of banana that tastes like that fake banana flavor. It was called the Gros Michel. I think they were a bit wider, like bigger in terms of like circumference, and a little shorter. But what happened was a fungus got to them, and because they're all the same thing with the apples, they're all the same plants, they all have the same genetic structure, and basically wiped out all the commercial Gros Michel plants. You can still get Gros Michel, but they're not really sold commercially. Some places where it can grow, that you can like get them in like markets and stuff, but most people who've tried them have tried them because like someone in their backyard in Florida has a tree or something like that, like very small scale. So I wish I could try one day, just for the experience of it. But then I wonder if it will make me ruined on bananas forever. I'm not all that fond of bananas. I do like them. You split them down the middle, lengthwise. You put them in a pan with a dusting of cinnamon and sugar, so it caramelizes. So good. Fried bananas, a bit of vanilla ice cream. Very, very good. I recommend. It's actually mentioned in Islam as an apple. That's where it's taking it from, I believe. Oh, interesting. So the Quran mentions it. I'll have to look that up. That's really interesting. Banana split? Do people usually fry banana splits? Because the banana splits that I've seen are always just a raw banana with scoops of ice cream and whipped cream and sauce and stuff. Making you hungry. I'm sorry. You love fried bananas? Yeah, my dad used to make them for us. It's a delicious and also emotionally precious recipe for me. So yeah, it's enough. It's enough rambling about fruit for the moment, I think. Just want to say banana split. That's fair. That's fair. So the next question is about automating mental health treatment. So Do you think it's possible that we will automate mental health professionals? This is based on my personal experience by going to therapists who are specifically paid to be empathetic as their baseline work have done nothing of the sort because being paid is their bottom line, or they just went into the profession to mess with people. So, if we program robots who can be programmed not to have biases, would we be better off? Or will they be just as bad as humans because their base model is worst of humans, i.e., selfish and fending for themselves and their corporations who designed them? So, this is an interesting concept that I've definitely thought about and read some interesting things about AI before. Just briefly before I read my response, I will say that bad therapists suck. Everyone can be bad at their job, including therapists. I think for the majority of bad therapists, they think that what they're doing is good, that they're helping people, and they may be able to help some people. Sometimes it's a clash of personalities. Sometimes the therapist won't have the right experience or the right expertise for a particular person. It might just not be a good fit. I've definitely encountered that. It took me half a dozen at least until I could find someone that was helpful for me personally. I had the right experience, right education, right expertise, right sensibilities, right personality. All that stuff finally aligned, which is very fortunate. But yeah, it takes some doing. It really does. The other thing I wanted to mention that I don't mention in my response because I wasn't really focused on that with this person. But what I want to say is that I don't think most therapists go into it for the money. For the same amount of education, you can go into much more lucrative fields. So I think that most therapists are not doing it for profit. They're doing it because they do think that they can help. There might be the occasional therapist that has a personality disorder that does do it to try and manipulate and harm people. I hope that they're a very small minority. Would really hope that. But I think more so, it's usually when a therapist is a bad fit for someone. It's because you know the personalities don't fit, or the diagnosis might be wrong, so they're taking the wrong approach with the person, or it may be that they don't have the right expertise, the right training, because even within therapy, there are certain specializations, certain people that focus on treating certain, mental health conditions. So, it can be hard to find the right fit, especially in the US where you might be restricted by, the network of providers that your insurance will cover, who you can afford, all that sort of thing. Got off a call. Apparently being sick made you harder now. Okay. Whatever works, I guess. I hope you feel better though. So this was my actual answer. Let me just hydrate because I'm getting dry mouth. My actual answer to the question was humans are very flawed. We all are in some way. When a therapist is blind to their own limitations, it can be very damaging for us. I have seen many therapists who caused me distress and made things worse. At one point, I gave up because I felt that no one was able to understand, help, relate to me. Fortunately, my apprentice found someone who was able to help, and she referred me to another helpful person who referred me to others, and then I managed to find my most recent help on my own. It takes a lot to get to the right fit. Some people are bad at their jobs, or just bad fit for some patients, or they may even have an untreated condition which drew them to the power dynamics of therapy, as you say. Let me scroll up a bit. Funny story, not funny? Oh, everyone's okay. As to the robot/AI therapists, we do have a limited version of this already with some apps. The trouble with AI, as you say, is that it is programmed by flawed humans. Usually, programmers don't have psychology slash neuropsychology PhDs. So such projects rely on many different people with different life experiences and disciplines. That's not bad, but not necessarily a bad thing. I had to edit this so much to fit it. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but perhaps more complicated than human therapists. Other issues are, as you say, profit motive and perhaps the less apparent issue of data mining that companies often use to profit from in our very online world now. From what I've seen in research on AI, there is a big problem with humans baking into the AI their unconscious biases. So they are bringing all of their prejudices and claiming that the AIs are free of bias. AI learns from data sets, and those are often collected from big online spaces such as social media. So they contain many human biases and flaws. You can imagine, like, taking all of the vitriol from um, an online space and feeding it into a computer, you're going to get some wonky results. I think there was a chat bot not too long ago that researchers had set up for people to ask it questions, and it very quickly became very bigoted. Probably because people were purposely messing with it, but I think also just like an aggregation of strong sentiment in a certain direction from very online people. Hey, other low player, how you doing? There was a therapist by the name Dr. Ike. His full name was Hershikoft. I don't know how to say that. He manipulated his patients using their pain and not helping them just to delve into their suffering in order to publish a book. Yeah, that's terrible. There was another study that I read about. I think I saw a YouTube video about it, and I read up on it. It was about stutters. So there was this researcher, and what she did was she took children in school, and she quote unquote tested them and separated them into stutterers and non-stutterers, and gave them specific therapies to help with the stuttering. And what came out of that was that she ended up giving children stutters because she identified some of the children purposely incorrectly, purposely labeled them as being stutterers when they had no problem. They were at a normal level of speech for their developmental stage. And so she actually gave people speech impediments that they carried with them for the rest of their lives. Extremely unethical, breaking so many rules about what you do. Experimenting on not just people without consent, but children without consent, and causing lifelong harm. Terrible stuff. We don't do that. That's not good. Therapist brought to you by Facebook, worse than you might imagine. Imagine the day of Buff 1000. Oh my gosh. I wonder if we'll get there. We're only at 60 now. Time to stutter a heartbeat. Yeah, it was not good. It was terrible. It was very, 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 very bad. But now we know some things about stuttering. Not that it was worth traumatizing those children, but we do know now that the best way to help someone if they have a stutter is not to draw attention to it. If you're not the speech therapists have their own tactics. But if you just are friends or family of someone who has a stutter, don't draw attention to it. Don't try to speak for them. Don't correct them. Just let them work through it, because anxiety makes it worse. So if you're pushing on them, you're trying to help by, finishing the sentence for them, then that can put more pressure on them. So you don't want to feed into it that way. Buff 69 gonna be on being nice? That'd be pretty good, wouldn't it? Basically, you can force someone to have a stutter. You can, yeah. Unfortunately, you can. People are very attuned to others socially, and there are certainly very nefarious things that are possible to do quite simply if one knows how and is dedicated to it. I do not recommend it, I do not endorse it, but it's definitely a thing. The rest of my response, so we talked about the the human biases and flaws, how a lot of AI data is based on AI learns usually through data sets, so things like social media. And then I went on to say, I do think it's possible. We have a lot of work ahead of us. Meanwhile, a good use of AI might be detailed matching of patient need and therapist expertise, as well as personality. By now, I have become very good at interviewing potential providers. I'm able to question them respectfully but thoroughly, rather than simply accept that this is the way it is and put up with uncomfortable or downright harmful behavior. It shouldn't be the additional burden of the person seeking help to interview and ensure that the therapist is a good fit. But sadly, that is necessary at this stage. Scroll up a bit so my hat's not in the way. A good therapist will thank us for giving them feedback, what feels affirming for us or not, and any other questions or feedback that we feel the need to provide. Therapy is a trust based partnership in which both parties should be earnestly working toward better mental health, and that requires open and free communication. I think therapists should educate us about what is needed from us, our responsibilities and expectations, as well as our rights as patients and what we can expect from the therapist. Often people feel too intimidated to question an expert, but we are the only ones who know what it's like to live our own lives and experience being in our own minds. So the therapist would need to provide us that insight. The therapist would need us to provide the insight to them. Thank you for your question. Wish you all the best. Now there's an idea. But wouldn't AI simply reach the conclusion based on the collective data of different patients? Can be similar yet still different at the same time. Well, I mean, I don't know how good AI is at actually creative problem solving at this stage. Whenever you're doing a security check on a website to prove that you're not a bot, like click on all the traffic lights, click on all the scooters, you're actually training an AI. That's what you're doing. You're not just passing a security check, you're training an image bot to understand what objects look like in different scenarios because they're not as good as humans are at that yet. AI could be used nefariously, definitely. It already is being used nefariously. There's AI that law enforcement is using, facial recognition AI, and it's not accurate. And it's extremely inaccurate for people who have more melanin in their skin, which is going to compound inequality in that area even more. There's a lot to be concerned about with AI. It's not good the way that we're using it at the moment. It needs to be regulated, it needs to be watched carefully, and the ethics of it need to be carefully laid out. Algorithms, for example, yes. Algorithm that dictates whether or not you'll find my stream, whether you'll see any of my tweets, these are all AI. Well, to a degree. An algorithm isn't necessarily full-blown thinking machine AI the way we think of AI. And people already get shit from law enforcement and this will make it worse. Absolutely. And I'm not for it. We need less of that, not more. If it finds a blockage, it will seek the nearest link. Full database on the nearest and best solution. Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot we don't know about mental health. There's a lot of physical components to mental health that we're only just starting to unlock. Neuroscience and in this century, whatever you want to call it, this decade, these next few decades, is going to be pretty fascinating because we're looking a lot more at the physical mechanisms of the brain and trying to link that to outward symptoms and behavior. We're looking at what causes degenerative brain disease like Alzheimer's and what's it called? I want to say delirium, but that's not it. Age-related, neurological conditions. A lot of things to do with dementia. That's the word. Thank you. I have a word recall issue sometimes. Yeah, research into dementia and Alzheimer's is really, really fascinating what they're finding. We still don't have a good way to treat it yet, but they're still looking at, causes, risk factors, all those kinds of things, indications. There's so much more research on traumatic brain injury. Um, there's so much more research on the physical differences with the brain with people who are neurodivergent, people on autism spectrum disorder, people with ADHD, dyslexia, all the different types of neurodivergence and things like that. So I think that we're going to move away, hopefully, from the speculative model of like Freud and saying that we want to, be intimate with our parents and weird speculation like that, and we'll move more toward like actual provable things where you can go in and get a brain scan and they can say, well, this area of your brain is acting this way, so from that we can correlate this to this symptom that you're having, and that suggests that you might have this condition and we can treat it this way. So we can have more concrete indicators rather than just basing it all on, encyclopedic knowledge from people who have observed people and had their own biases and also had their own perceptions and things coloring all of these definitions, all of these symptom lists and things like that. We still have a big problem with, you know, people who aren't white males having science that's accurately based upon their needs and their bodies, like underdiagnosis of conditions in women and people of color and all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot to work on in that area too. But if we can have some way to more definitively have a diagnosis that's not so speculative, it's not so based on opinion, and not so colored by unconscious bias, I think that will be a good and valuable tool to have. Of course, there's still the issue of income inequality and access, but I'm hopeful that we'll continue to work on that. I mean, or start to work on that. I don't know if I can say continue in the US. It's more like start to work on it. Oh, it's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot. I get a brain scan, I'm pretty sure I'll create a new world wonder. No, we all have some dead brain cells. It's actually when you sleep that your body, your mind, your brain actually cleans out the waste products of your brain. So make sure you sleep. I'm neurodivergent black trans woman and medical stuff is weird for me. I can imagine. You basically have like not just hard mode, like what do they call it in games? Like horror mode or something? That's really hard. That is like so many things working against you. You have all of my respect for having to deal with that. I only have like one of those really. I'm cis passing, I'm straight passing, I'm white. I'm female, so world record for not sleeping is 11 days. The person that did that has permanent insomnia issues and a lot of chronic issues, so don't do it. It's not worth it. He will tell you it's not worth it. I've heard interviews with him. Not worth it. Not. Did he die finally? Yeah, he might have died. Yeah, not good. Not good. So this one is about assuming the worst. So I guess anxiety related. Feels like soul level -44 in Dark Souls 2 with Mad Cat's controller. Well, I hope that you find some good allies that will actually listen to you and help you navigate things, because doing it without that, even on my pretty easy difficulty by comparison, is really hard. So I hope that you can find some good allies to help you through, because they are invaluable. I talked earlier about my experience finding mental health professionals, And once I found one good one, then it just became a chain of connecting me to other good ones. So it can be kind of like instead of going through just endless amounts of bad providers, once you find one good one, then they can sometimes help you to connect more. Have a good support system. I'm glad to hear that. That's really good. Two best friends, sis and Wesson. Yeah, it takes a lot, huh? I'm glad that you have it now though. That's really good. All right, next question. So this one is about overthinking, assuming the worst. So do you have any tips to help with overthinking slash assuming the worst? I often find myself doing both for almost everything, especially when it comes to my health. Support systems are vital. Absolutely, they are. Yes. So you guys as my support system. Well, I hope that we can be helpful in some way. I know there's only a limited amount of support that we can provide, but I do hope this community is the sort of place where people feel they can lean on one another to some degree. I'm not going to be able to go over to your house and help you move. I'm sorry. There's only one me. But I can be here to hear about your day and hang out with you on Discord and distract you from whatever's worrying you with my streams and offer you my insight into things if it's helpful. You can enjoy my ridiculous tweets. Things like that. I'll help in the ways that I can, limited though it may be. So my response was another term for assuming the worst is catastrophizing. If we find that we have a lot of health, if you find that you have a lot of health anxiety, then sometimes it might be appropriate to gather evidence. If you have regular physical exams and trust the judgment of the doctor or nurse practitioner who performs them, then then you can remind yourself that your last physical was normal and the medical professional had no concerns, or you're following the treatment plan if something did come up. If you feel comfortable with preventative measures like vaccination, eating nutritious foods, we don't have to be perfect, but adding some more fruits and veg is usually good. Getting regular exercise, getting enough good quality sleep. Those are some things that can help protect your physical health and also mental health, as they can help with anxiety as well. I accidentally hit enter too soon, so I went back and edited to add more. Nice cozy space. I'm glad you enjoy it here. Always wanted people to be comfortable and feel welcome. I also find that as I practice more and more thinking I am safe, people are not actively trying to harm me, and people have good intentions, it has helped my mindset in many areas. I certainly would not encourage ignoring signs of danger, but assuming someone who cut me off in traffic, for example, where no one was harmed, nothing was damaged, I feel it's harmless and even good to perhaps assume the best. They didn't see me, I was in their blind spot, they're a new driver, they're anxious and distracted, they're on their way to see an ill loved one, and so on. That way, my fear turns to empathy, and then I find it much easier to calm myself and go on with, let go of that activation. So, activation, I mean the fight or flight response, when something dangerous happens, like someone cuts you off in traffic, then your heart can race, you can feel maybe a bit clammy, your breathing might quicken, things like that. That's the fight or flight kicking in. And there's also grounding techniques, mental and physical ones, self soothing, and mindfulness. There are lots of good resources explaining how to practice those. It might seem like a lot at first, but starting small with just one that appeals to us can be really helpful to get past the initial hurdle of starting. And practicing when we already feel calm or good can also be helpful to set up the habit and allow us to be reminded of the skills when we do need them. Health anxiety is really hard, and I'm sorry you're dealing with that, and I wish you all the best. Grounding techniques are so useful. Yeah, I find them really useful too. But as I mentioned, they can seem like a lot at first, but there's some really, really simple ones. Some
really simple ones, like one that can be either a soothing or a grounding technique is listing things in a category, like maybe your favorite movies, top 10 favorite movies, top 10 favorite anime, um, favorite ice cream flavors in order, things like that. That's a type of mental grounding. So it's taking your mind off of whatever, your mind is fixating or ruminating on, and changing that thought pattern to something else that can help to calm your nervous system. Um, things like uh, for more of a physical grounding, the one that I find really helpful, that is really effective for me now, I've practiced it a bit, is 5 4 3 2 1 grounding. So that would be noticing, like acknowledging 5 things around you, like naming them either out loud or in your head if it's not a comfortable place that you're in to verbalize it. 4 textures that you can feel, 3 things you can smell, or etc. I can't remember. I've missed one. But sight. Oh, hearing. So 4 textures you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. If you have something like a strong breath mint or sour candy or something like that that you can use as the taste, it can be really good for bringing you back to your body and out of the anxiety. This also works for if you're feeling like you just can't move, you're so depressed, you're so down, you're on that hypo end of being activated, and you just can't, keep your eyes open because you're just so depressed, so tired, so exhausted. Your body is being pushed down with weights. This also works for that as well. So that's also something I didn't know until recently that I found really helpful. All right, have a good rest, Connor. Thank you for hanging out. It's lovely to spend time with you. Take care. Yeah, that was a good one. What else we got? Got another robot one. People are thinking about robots lately, huh? This one is about, do you think we'll be replaced and preceded by robots in the future? Love, Death, and Robots is great. Yeah. The couple episodes that we've seen so far have been really good. Replaced entirely? I doubt it. Scribes were quote unquote replaced by the printing press, but people still write. Factories have become increasingly automated, but there are still some manual tasks that we can't fully automate, and repairs are done by humans. Ideally, technology should serve humankind and make our quality of life better. Right now, it's mostly serving the rich to cut out the labor of those of us without wealth and power, with some quality of life side benefits in the case of consumer products for those who can access them. I think fully autonomous robots that can self repair, function in cooperation with one another, and self replicate may never come to be, whether due to lack of natural resources, things like metal, minerals, renewable energy, design challenges, or political reasons, people not wanting to be replaced, unless a lot changes in the world in future. Printing press? Want nanobots? I feel like there's so much sci-fi that has talked about how nanobots can really be really evil. Wasn't there? I can't remember if there were nanomachines in Stray. There was definitely bacteria that was um, genetically modified to liquefy trash, and then it got out of hand and became those things that was eating everyone. Printing presses are awesome. Want to go to printing press museum? I mean, we still use some similar techniques as really really old printing presses. For like, what is it like? I can't remember the name of it right now, but putting designs on shirts. It's similar to like really really old techniques for, like, the printing press was more modernized than that. You had all the number plates and everything, but
Yeah, we still use all kinds of technology in all kinds of ways. Like a printing press was just like a giant typewriter, really. People still use typewriters. Screen printing, that's it, yeah. Yeah, the Zerks. Replicators from Stargate. Oh my gosh, it's been so long since I watched Stargate. I really love that show. I don't think I saw that much of it though. I don't think I really saw, like, for me, in New Zealand, so the electronics are really expensive in New Zealand because what happens is they usually make them in China, then they ship them to Australia, and then they ship them to New Zealand. So you can imagine at each stage there's a markup. So by the time it gets to New Zealand, it's really expensive. So things like TiVo and stuff like that were not that common, at least not in like my socioeconomic band of my family and stuff. Um, so in terms of like video on demand, watching shows, like binging shows, that wasn't really an option. You would just have to catch it when it was on, and I was always very, very unreliable with watching shows when they aired. I would never remember. Have you ever translated 5019 into French? By the way, there's a gain function research on avian flu utilizing CRISPR. We can make vaccines before it mutates from bird to human transmission. Interesting. I have not translated 5019 into French. My French is not good enough to do that off the top of my head. But yeah, applications for vaccine things is what you would expect. Yeah, we'll let it be then. Oh yeah, and someone asked what my toxic trait was. So I didn't know this was like a meme going around. I was just like, I don't know, what is my toxic trait? I looked up a list of toxic traits after I answered this, and yeah. Other than maybe being a little conflict avoidant, I don't really have any of the ones that were listed. So someone asked me, what is your toxic trait? And I said, I trained my cat to use me as a ladder, and now she climbs everyone. Fortunately, Vint doesn't mind, usually. Usually. Um, but it might be more of an issue if she gets comfortable enough to like climb guests and things. She usually hides from guests because of like COVID. We haven't had a lot of visitors since we got her in 2019 in June. She was born in April 2019. So I think she had like a few months of visitors and then nothing for like what, 2 more years, 2 or more years. We do have a roommate who still lives with us who bought the Mage Tower with us. Um, so she's comfortable with him, but other people she's a bit wary of. We've had visitors and she will just kind of stare at them from down the hallway. It's about as close as she gets. But maybe she'll get more used to people as we have more guests. But yeah, I think a lot of the things listed as toxic traits um, are things that I've worked on for a long time. I can find the list again. I think the one that I found was like 15 or something, 12 toxic traits or something. I don't know. This one's like 100 toxic traits. um, get one from a site that's maybe slightly reputable. None of them seem to have any kind of science behind them. I guess we'll look at the one that has 8. That doesn't seem too overwhelming. So this list of toxic traits, manipulative, they make you feel bad about yourself, being judgmental, negativity, passive aggression, self-centered, difficulty managing anger, and controlling. So that's an even shorter list than the one that I found, which also had like conflict avoidant, and a few other things. But yeah, I think all of those things are things that I'm very careful about and aware of. Some of those behaviors are things that I have encountered, unfortunately, with people, and so I'm very highly aware of how it affects others because it's something that's been leveled at me. I would never want to do that to another person. Toxic trait 99, desperately trying to figure out why every trait you have is toxic. Oh no. Yeah, it's like, how can there be eight on one site and then 100 on another? It's like one that was 8, one that was 30, 125, one that's like 100. I'm like, okay, 100. That's got to be derivative. They've got to at some point have overlapping traits. That can't be. It can't be a unique list of 100 features. That wouldn't make sense. So this one's about financial wellness. It was a little vague, so I kind of gave 2 answers. The question is, how much money is enough money? And my response was, that depends. Is this a practical question? That would depend on one's needs and resources available. For example, having a chronic illness in a country with no public healthcare accessible to the person would increase cost of living. Different places have higher or lower rent/house prices. So, in a practical sense, I'd say it really depends on the individual situation. My nose is squeaking, and the tissues are far away. Maybe you can grab those, Vent. Just ping him. Oh, I moved so the cat is getting up now. No, cat, bye. Whoop, sleeping away. I don't know if the mic picked up her paws hitting the floor. She leapt away. It was very cute. I'm gonna blow my nose really quick. Gonna try and rest? Alright. Have a good rest, Rosalia. Thank you for hanging out. Please take good care. So it depends on the individual situation. In a philosophical sense, as much as is required for basic needs, security, things like emergency fund, retirement, gifts/helping family and friends, and some items/supplies to allow one to pursue hobbies, meaningful activities in life. Being able to take enough time to rest as needed and build relationships are an important part of income that people often overlook, I feel too. So, Ghost Kitsune, hello! Ghost Raid, welcome! How was your stream? Oh, you're doing art! That's awesome! I hope you had a good time! Welcome in! We were just reading through some questions that I got on my Curious Cat and talking about my answers. Hope that you had a lovely stream. Welcome in, everyone. Making new Halloween outfits for my V-Ride. Oh, nice! That's awesome! And your New Zealanders are such nice folks. We actually talk about these things regarding human relations and way of getting on. In my part of America, only toxic if it doesn't get you laid. Oh gosh, I actually live in the US now. I live on the East Coast, but yeah, I'm originally from New Zealand. And talking about mental health and interpersonal relations, social issues and stuff like that is something that's really important to me. So I'm glad that people are receptive to it. I wasn't sure if when I started streaming people would want to hear about it. But yeah. We watched the weekly buff, which this week was about that's last week. So this week was about creating despite discouragement. So, like putting things out on the internet, streaming to the internet, tweeting, all those kinds of creative things, making art, making your wonderful V-Roid outfits, Ghost Kitsune, all those kinds of things, and doing it despite people maybe criticizing or discouraging, and how to deal with that, my thoughts on it, that sort of thing. But it's the same link there. You just have to go to a different part of a different video on the same channel there. Yeah, so I make those every Monday,
And today we decided to go through some curious cat questions. People are able to submit questions to me anonymously, suggestions for buff topics through my curious cat as well, and give me feedback. Interested to hear what people think. And yeah, we're just going through some of my answers and talking about various issues because I haven't done a talking stream in a while. So if that's the sort of thing you're into, feel free to get cozy and welcome in. So we were talking about how much money is enough money. So as I mentioned, I'll just quickly go over it for those people that just came in. So I was talking about, like, in a practical sense, it would depend on your circumstances. So if you're in a place that has accessible public health care, or you don't have accessible public health care, and maybe you have a chronic illness or something like that, you might need more money. If you live in an area with high cost of rent or house prices, then you might need more. And if those are lower costs in other areas, you might need less. And then in the philosophical sense, to have all your basic needs met, and savings for emergencies and retirement and gifts for friends and family, and then also things that you can do to fuel hobbies and things that are meaningful to you in your life. So if like gardening is your thing, money to buy supplies for that. If you're a VTuber, maybe resources to get a model. All those kinds of good things that bring you joy and allow you to connect with people or nature and make your life meaningful. I think those are important, and also an important part of income that people overlook often is that your time is finite. So people who can afford to pay someone to take care of things for them, like pay an accountant to do their taxes, pay someone to come by and clean their house for them, pay someone to mow their lawn for them, pay someone to care for their elderly family members or their young family members for them. All of these are uh, things that are enabling you to use your time differently than if you didn't have as many resources, as much money. So I feel like that's part of income and wealth that people often take for granted. Like, you'll see these stories about CEOs that work 80 hours. I'm sure they're not pressing their own dress shirts. I'm sure they're not making their own beds and mopping their own floors. I'm sure they're outsourcing all of that to someone else. So, that's enabling them to be able to work those excessive hours, because otherwise, they'd be showing up to meetings, undressed and unwashed and unfed and all kinds of things. So they definitely, even if they're just doing things like living in a hotel and buying all their food from restaurants and takeout places, then that's still other people's labor that they're utilizing and saving them time that they can then spend on their pursuit of their business. So I feel like that's something that people often overlook. Is this one that's interesting to people? My top 10 favorite anime? Honestly, I struggled with this one. A division of labor, and each culture has different approach to it depending on where you live. Yeah, that's very true. There are cultures where it's perfectly normal to have multiple generations in one household. So often the grandparents or the parents will look after the grandchildren or the children, the youngest family members, so they won't need to send them off to daycare, those sorts of things. But yeah, these are all things that it varies by culture, it varies by socioeconomic situation, it varies a lot. I grew watching TV shows and I can't remember the last 10 shows I watched. Honestly, I had to Google like 90s and early 2000s anime to remind myself. I definitely had to remind myself of some of these. But they're all shows that had some kind of impact on me. Um, yeah, I'll go over them. So my number one that I'll always say is Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. It has a lot of philosophy, a lot of
exploration of identity and consciousness, which is really interesting to me. So I relate to the main character, who's Motoko Kusanagi, in many ways. The exploration of consciousness and meaning is very powerful to me. Next one was Cowboy Bebop. It's fun and nostalgic anime for me. I love it especially. But all the characters are great in their own ways. I really like the portrayal of the carrying masculinity from Jet. Tachikoma, Tachikoma Touchcat. Yeah, Tachikomas are great. I actually have a Ghost in the Shell PSP game. It's really hard because the controls are so bad. maybe I've been thinking about it. I don't like uncapped subathons, but what I might think about doing is like sub goals that I'll do over a period of time on stream. Not like extending the stream, but like kind of like how we had stretch goals for the July subathon. So things like, play this really old PSP game that's really hard to control. Things like that. That would be fun, but like also kind of like a bit of a pain for me. I might think about doing that. Maybe next year. Yeah. A more recent one that I've been enjoying is Spy Family. And that's because there's three people dealing with their secret struggles while trying to live together as a family. There's so much in that for me. Won't spoil anything, but pretty early on in the anime, you realize that each of the three family members, the quote unquote mother, father, and daughter, have their own secrets that they're keeping from one another. And that plays out in various ways. And yeah, it's a really fun show. And it's surprisingly deep in certain ways, even though it kind of comes off as being quite comedic. I think there's a lot of depth to it. Another good one that I enjoyed a lot was Attack on Titan. I found it so much better than I expected it would be. Yeah. I wasn't expecting to love it so much, but it's really good. It's really amazing. So, Attack on Titan, it's a fascinating world. I really like world building. To me, a world is another character, and they have to be compelling. I want to know about them. I want to know all the history and the even like. I actually really like when worlds are explained through unreliable narrators. So there's like versions of history that has been dictated by like, say in the case of Dragon Age, like the Chantry, which is the church, may have dictated some version of history, and then maybe like the Dalish elves have a version, and then like the uh, Elvenon, the ancient elves, have their own version, and it's all kind of like figuring out what the biases are and figuring out, who's reliable in what way and who isn't in what way. Really interesting. A fascinating world, compelling characters with interesting and complicated motivations. I won't spoil anything, but there's a lot of philosophical questions that come up through the course of the story, and I find fascinating in how they're explored. There's like some very polarizing ideas in Attack on Titan, and the way that the show unfolds and kind of the characters learn about the setting and learn about themselves and their history is really interesting, and it changes so much from the very start. The very start is the world is very harsh and scary, but the characters are much more naive at the start, and then they evolve slowly through the story, finding out their history and things like that. That's as much detail as I'll go into, so don't spoil it for anyone that hasn't seen it. You have Warhammer 40k, and basically every piece of information is probably outright false. I mean, that can be fun in its own way, right? Trying to figure out what's propaganda, what's grains of truth. So many competing interests. Another really nostalgic one for me is Dragon Ball Z. So I didn't actually see Dragon Ball. Still haven't seen Dragon Ball, the original. I started out with Dragon Ball Z. Of course, in New Zealand, we got the Australian cut, and the Australian censors are notoriously terrible. They will cut like everything. So you'd see Goku powering up for half an episode, and then you'd see like someone on the ground. Like you wouldn't actually see the impact because they cut that. So it was really bad cut, but I still enjoyed it enough to want to see it. So even though they butchered it, yeah, it was pretty bad censorship. I wish that New Zealand had their own censorship board, but it's kind of a matter of licensing stuff, right? It's much more efficient to just take the Australian version and the network and everything how it's set up. Didn't even show a cartoon fist fight. Nope. Australians are really notoriously terrible with their censorship. It's so strict. And Vampire Hunter D, the movie, I actually saw that in theaters. Visually incredible, and the atmosphere has stayed with me long after. Seeing it in theaters at a special screening was amazing too. So there was, I don't know if there still is, 'cause I haven't been back in a long time, but in Wellington there's a theater um, that is, it's a single, I think it's a single screen theater. It's one big theater. It's really, really big screen. And that was where I saw it. It's on I think Courtney Place Theater. I don't know the name of it. But it's the old one at the end of the street, not the newer one down the street. But yeah, it was amazing to see. That was also where I saw Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet, which was 4 hours long. Yes, there is an intermission at halfway through, but I still really love that version of Hamlet. I love Hamlet. It's so good. Yeah, Wellington's great. I miss the city too. Wellington is really good because it's an international city. It's the capital of New Zealand, but also like you can just, you know, take a bus up the hill and then you're surrounded by nature. Like it's not like it's definitely a city. Like you can go into the central business district and there's like skyscrapers all around you, but there's still nature everywhere. Like it's still got some balance with nature. So I think it's a good blend. Personally, I am biased, 100% biased, but I think it's a good blend. Vent liked it too. So another one, which is maybe a little polarizing these days. I feel like some people don't really get it. But Neon Genesis Evangelion was one that I watched in my mid-teens. A bunch of profoundness. I think I was meant to say profoundly flawed and traumatized people trying to save the world. That's compelling to me. Everyone in Eva is messed, messed up, messed all the way up. There's no one in Eva that is not incredibly, yeah. Really, really got issues. But they're still really compelling, and I think their flaws are a part of why they're compelling. They're doing impossible things, and some of them are literal children, like minors, like 14-year-olds, and they're being expected to save the world. And yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Just the one that people outright refuse to watch because people talk about it so much. It might be. I recently saw a Twitter thread of someone, might have been a Twitch streamer, who watched it and said that it was just terrible. They didn't enjoy it at all. And then everyone was responding to them like, "Oh, you're missing the point, yada yada yada." And you know, maybe it's just not groundbreaking anymore. It's not interesting anymore. But I think at the time it kind of, what people often don't get is the origins of a lot of anime. Like Dragon Ball Z is not just a shonen anime. It's meant to be like a deconstruction, like a satire of shonen. Same thing with Eva. It's not meant to just be like a kaiju anime, like a giant robots anime, Gundam anime, whatever. What do they call it? Mecha anime? it's not meant to just be that. It's meant to be kind of a deconstruction of it and how like putting all this pressure on literal like minors, like 14, 15-year olds, it's it's not going to work out so well. But people don't necessarily see it that way. They're used to hero protagonist Kun rising to the occasion and being everything they need to be, being brave and just facing down death and not having any human needs, not having any appropriate developmental needs. Not being really people, just being a hero archetype. On the other hand, getting the robot Shinji. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I understand why he doesn't. But also, yeah. I actually played a D&D character once who was a complete coward. He was the chosen one. His name was Chance. He was a half elf. And he was like the chosen one. He got the sword. The sword was haunted by well, not haunted. It was possessed by a dwarven elf woman. She was pretty young. And basically all he wanted to do was like hide in a corner and talk to his sword because he like got a crush on the elf ghost of the sword. And he would literally run away from battles. It was really fun. I love Chance. He was so profoundly in the wrong place. Chance, yeah. Like has the worst luck. Chance. He was not chasing anything except his own tail. Chance very relatable, right? Freaking relatable. Who wouldn't want to just talk to their cute sword waifu? I want to fight people. Talk to my cute sword waifu. But yeah, he was probably at least on some level inspired by Shinji, I imagine. Another one that I haven't actually finished, but I would be interested in. I have read some of the manga actually. I don't know why I said it that way, manga. Probably need to wet my throat again. So, Rurouni Kenshin. So it's about an unassuming jovial ronin who's actually a deadly fighter, and it's such a departure from the long-standing tough guy main character trope that I enjoyed it a lot at the time. It's probably not as groundbreaking anymore because it's kind of old now. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting at the time because I'm used to all characters like being like the tough guy that goes and sits in the corner. Like you'll have a tavern and there's like 5 tough guys each sitting alone in a corner. I don't know, I guess it's not a square tavern. Isn't Rurouni Kenshin the one manga that's made up by a messed up person? Oh, I don't know. Well, I don't support them. That's unfortunate. Yeah, I don't know anything about the authors of any of these. But yeah, that was one that was interesting for me. Death of the author baby. Yeah. I mean, I won't be lining anyone's pockets, but back when I was young, I had no information about any of the authors of any of this stuff, so yeah. Another one that's more recent is Avatar: The Last Airbender. I enjoyed the world building of this one as well, and the characters, especially Aang, except for his boundary pushing with Katara. So cringe. I really like Uncle Iroh and Toph as well. I really want to have tea with Uncle Iroh. He's the best. He's 12? Oh, Aang, yeah, he is, but still. I feel like the people around him could have pushed back a bit more. Yeah, they needed to teach him boundaries. Mm-hmm. He didn't have any monk, parental guidance because he was alone in that time period. So he needed some parental guidance and some teaching about boundaries. And yeah, the last one I listed there was JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Abdul and Foo Fighters Forever. Also, Josuke and Jono's stanza, pretty awesome. I like their powers, the creativity of it. I really like the concept of giving kind of a broad skill set that you can apply in different ways and really creative ways. It does mean that it's probably hard to keep the characters from being extremely overpowered. But you're the author. You can make exceptions where you need to. Best Plankton. Normalize naming your kids after rock bands. Sure, Doc. I actually almost gave up on JoJo. I did not like the first season. I think supposedly the meme is that no one does, but I nearly gave up on it after like the third episode. Okay, this is an interesting one actually. This is probably a good one to talk about on stream. So you might see sometimes people complaining about trauma dumping or in people's rules saying, do not trauma dump. I very specifically do not have anything about trauma dumping in my rules because I don't want people to be turned off talking about the things that are important to them in my chat. Of course, if someone's having a full blown meltdown, then I'll absolutely have one of my mods, or if they're not available, myself will send them resources, give them direction on where they can get the appropriate help. Because I'm not a therapist, this isn't a crisis line, I can't help them in the way that they need. But I'm not going to shame them or reject them or ban them or anything like that because I don't want to discourage them. I don't want to be the reason that they clam up and don't find help. Absolutely not, Kite Man. You're not being called out. This is about the question. Just a general policy of mine. I fully respect every streamer's right and need to conduct their streams in the way that they're comfortable, set their boundaries where they're comfortable. But I do feel a little bit odd about people who say that they advocate for mental health and then they kind of shame people for not having good mental health. That's not a vibe for me. That's not a vibe. So you won't see that kind of vague, what's the word? Vague warning from me. If people have questions about what's appropriate to talk about in my chat, absolutely just ask. I'm happy to explain. And this is one of those questions, so I'll get on with reading it. So the question, what is actually appropriate to talk about regarding mental health? I know not everyone is ready or mentally prepped to discuss mental health issues, but seeing how everyone is wanting to discuss mental health, I haven't seen any mental health that isn't heavy or dark in general. I would like to know your boundaries so I know not to talk about certain things because it might not be appropriate or makes you uncomfortable. Thank you and have a great day. Even if you're having a bad day and we've got to clamp down on it, I don't think we've timeout ban unless it was got abusive too. Yeah, absolutely. I would never just time someone out. I would say, hey, here are some resources. We can't help you with that. I hope that you can get through it, but make sure that you reach out. You need support. You deserve support. And then if they were just like spamming and continuing on, we might have to warn them again and then eventually time them out. But yeah, if it's someone that's genuinely seeking help, I would never shame them or try to turn them away in that way because I don't want to be the reason that someone clamps down on themselves and stops seeking help because sometimes for people, they feel like they can relate to me more than they can relate to someone like a therapist or school counselor or their parents or their siblings because I'm here, I'm making myself available, I'm showing that I'm interested in the same things that they are, I'm interested in video games, I'm interested in talking to people. I'm, you know, hopefully I'm showing that I'm non-judgmental, that I am interested, that I do care. And sometimes it's easier for people because online, I don't know what they look like. I don't know who they are. I'm not going to tell their parents. I'm not going to interfere in their life in any way. I'm just, it's much more low stakes than maybe someone who knows them IRL. So it does, in a way, it does feel more accessible for some people sometimes. And I understand that and I respect that. And I actually appreciate that they are reaching out to me and that in a sense they're trusting me. And I think that's really important. I think that's a good first step to actually getting the support that they need. So I will always encourage it as best I can and try to balance it with the needs of everyone else in the audience or you know, whatever area I'm in, moderating and that kind of thing. So I want everyone to be comfortable, and sometimes that does mean actually communicating with people rather than just timing out people or banning people who are having conflicts, helping them talk through it together and actually resolving things. Because that's the only way that people learn to live with other humans, right? Is to actually communicate, funnily enough. So, yeah, for my answer to that question about what is appropriate to discuss so that they can stay within my boundaries and not make me uncomfortable, I said for me personally, I'm comfortable talking about most thoughts and feelings people struggle with, including existential topics and suicidal ideation. Where I draw the line is that I prefer details of trauma to be vague. For the safety of everyone involved in the conversation and those who might see it after the fact in VODs or reading over my Curious Cat questions here. Same with impulse control issues. I don't need to hear specific or graphic detail of the impulse that is causing distress, including specific details of self-harm. It's also important to me that people don't give details that would identify them, legal names, specific locations like small cities or towns, date of birth, and so on, to ensure that people are staying safe online. That's why I never give my specific age, as my day and month of birth is publicly known. No, this is just general, but I want to apologize for saying some things. They're just me being generally nihilistic and self-loathing on the server. Flying Kiteman. Honestly, I have a lot of I would classify it more as absurdist than nihilist and existentialist, but absolutely I understand nihilism. Um, and I have never been disturbed by anything that you've said. And I promise you, I swear to you, that if you cross a line, I will say so. I will directly and respectfully indicate. I will communicate. I promise. That is my promise to you. It's really important for me that people communicate with me clearly. And so that's something that I find really valuable and really necessary, because I have had situations in my life where I've had relationships where people did expect me to read their mind. They did punish me for not reading their mind. They did expect me to just know things, just to intuitively know their wants and needs and desires. And that's not okay. I can't read their mind. Even if I could, I wouldn't want to. So, yeah, communication is key. Yes, I agree, just a gummy. Absolutely. So I promise, I commit to telling people directly and clearly what the boundaries are. And if they cross a line, I will let them know. I'm not about one strike, you're out. Unless it's someone that's being clearly malicious, which is usually pretty rare, fortunately. I have mostly lovely, wholesome people visiting my streams and my Discord and all of my social media. Then usually it'll be fine. I did have one unbanned request and I think we honored that one. But yeah, usually we don't even have to ban people. It's extremely rare that we have to ban people. Or even time out people. It's very rare. And if someone says something and I feel like it's a bit off color, I'm not quite sure about it, I will ask what they mean. I had someone in my chat who English was not their first language, and they were using a word that made me question, were they being bigoted? But actually, they were just misspelling a word. So fortunately, after a little bit of conversation, we understood, oh, okay, they're trying to say this word, not that other word. And then we just continued on and had a lovely time. So I never want to jump to conclusions that people are being malicious. If someone is being obtuse and trying to pretend that they're just being ignorant or um, in some way like unknowingly doing something harmful, they want to play that game. I'm still gonna assume good faith until they definitively prove that no, they are carrying on as a bit of a bit of a minus, you know. Throwing some Kiwi slang there, but being a bit of a knob. Appreciate it, Vivi. We'll try not to upset anyone or break a rule, but mistakes happen. Apologies in advance if I do. Yeah, no, absolutely. We're all human. If I make a mistake, if I say something that upsets someone, you're absolutely welcome to tell me. My first language is English, but it's New Zealand English, which is a different dialect than UK English or American English. So different words to me have different meanings. I try to be cognizant of that. Mostly I try to use American dialect because the majority of my audience is American, probably owing to the times that I stream. But also, I just live in the US now, so I'm used to speaking the American dialect. But yeah, always welcome to give me feedback, and if anyone says anything that hits me the wrong way, I'll always be curious about it. I won't jump to conclusions that you're trying to be malicious. I promise. That's a commitment. That's important to me. That's not just me saying that empty, like as an empty promise. That is something that is important to me personally. So, you don't have to trust my word on it. Hopefully, I can prove it through my actions, and I just continue to prove it. Really, that's the bottom line. So yeah, continuing with my answer. So don't talk about anything that will dox yourself in my chat. We don't want that. I understand that everyone's in a different place in their own mental health recovery, but for people in a fragile place, I would discourage them from inviting people to discuss mental health if it will likely cause them distress. Clear boundaries are really important. And for me, it's not a matter of saying something broad and expecting everyone to understand the nuance. If someone crosses a line, then I or one of my mods will explain to them and confirm understanding. Part of communicating boundaries is clarifying them as necessary. Mental health is a tricky and uncomfortable topic for many people. I wouldn't invite it if I wasn't willing to navigate the difficult parts as well as the joyous ones. Wonderful, Phoebe. Thank you, Just a Gummy. Yes, privacy is important, definitely. Gotta protect yourselves. You know, you might trust me, but that doesn't mean that untrustworthy people aren't lurking in the shadows. And even I don't want to know any compromising information. I just have no use of it, you know? Thank you for your question, and I hope that it clarified my stance for you. Please feel free to ask more questions if anything is unclear. I will always practice patience with earnest questions and do my best to assume people are asking questions of me in good faith. That's important to me. Trust is a huge difficulty with mental health struggles because many people have been met with judgment and have trouble navigating socially due to neurodivergence, mental health conditions, autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, dyslexia, social anxiety, and so on. I also have a fair number of people who I interact with who have English as their second language. So I never want to assume that they're malicious due to the language barrier that might cause misunderstandings or spelling or grammar mistakes or quirks. I'm here to connect, and that's messy. I'll continue to do my best to be patient, yet clear, and gently firm with communicating and enforcing boundaries for everyone's safety. So I think that I went over in the answer pretty much everything that
I have to say about that. But if you have questions, you can ask me here, you can ask me on Curious Cat, you can ask me on Discord, wherever you can talk to me, you can ask me. I'm happy to answer. It's an important point for community building and for the types of conversations that we have here. So I do appreciate questions. If anything is unclear, anyone has any concerns or comments or questions about it. Assuming leads to mistakes. And that happens to me several times. Yes, absolutely common that if you assume that you will get something wrong. So I try my best not to assume. And if I have to make an assumption, if I have to fill in a gap, I'll usually lean towards a generous assumption. So someone made a spelling mistake, someone, you know, that word means a different thing to them, or, whatever it may be, I'll always lean toward assuming that someone is being earnest and trying to connect in an earnest way, because just thinking of people in a generous way makes my life better and easier. And I don't think there's any shame in trusting people, even if those people turn out to not be worthy of that trust. I don't think that's on me. I don't feel any shame in trusting people at their word, taking people at their word. Of course, I'm not going to do it in a way that's going to endanger me, but I'm not endangered by words on the internet. I'm good. So, all right. Oh, this is an interesting one. So, do you enjoy answering Curious Cat questions, and have you ever been mentally drained by answering them? When I first started doing this, I did have a couple of people comment that, please take care of yourself. Don't give too much of yourself. So this is a good one to reassure people who might be thinking those things. So my response was, I do enjoy answering them. Yes. The reason I started streaming was to connect with people. So whenever someone asks me a question, that's them extending an invitation to connect with me. Sometimes it's lighthearted and sometimes it's heavier, but it's always appreciated. I have practice at keeping a good emotional boundaries and only giving of myself through stream and social media the energy I have to spare. So, if anything, answering questions here gives me more than it takes from me. I promise I'm always working hard to take care of myself as best I can and improving my skills in order to do even better. Thank you for your question and I wish you well. Hey Vivica, want to go for a walk? Just a sec, I'm answering Curious Cat. Yes, you'll hear that often out in the Mage Tower. That is known to happen. Definitely known to happen. Okay. So this is a fun one. Anxiety attacks, panic attacks. When your brain goes into overdrive and you have to fight, flight, freeze, faint, or fawn. I guess it's worth commenting. Very sweet and wholesome energy here. Oh, I'm glad you think so. Thank you so much. Yeah, they're not fun. Anxiety attacks are not fun. Something that is a more recently understood part of sympathetic nervous system activation, so fight or flight, is that we don't always respond as either fight or flight. There's also faint, which can doesn't always necessarily mean passing out. It can be also dissociating, so feeling like you're outside of your body, watching yourself from outside your body, feeling like you're just kind of on autopilot. A lot of people, it's a very common and normal thing to dissociate while driving, for example. So, say you're driving to the store that you go to a lot, like your local grocery store, and you get in the car and then you just kind of realize you're at the store and you don't have a memory of driving through all the intersections and everything. You realize that you had because you're at the store now. And that's a very common example of
your brain just kind of going into autopilot, and it's not a bad thing in that case. That's just normal. That's your like a mental shortcut for your brain, just like a habitual thing. So that's just an example that a lot of people can relate to, and they're kind of like woken up and like, oh wow, I'm where I was meant to be, kind of thing. It's not something to be concerned about at all. A lot of anxiety, but I'm not sure I've ever had an anxiety attack though. I think, I mean, there's anxiety attacks and there's panic attacks. They're technically two different things, or people often use the terms interchangeably. I think sometimes for me, when I would have them in the past, it would be hard for me to identify as having an anxiety or a panic attack. I'm a bit better at identifying them now. So you might have had them but not realize, or you may not have had them. I hope you haven't, because they're not fun. But it's definitely possible to have high anxiety without having had an anxiety attack or a panic attack. It's still valid that you have anxiety. Some people don't experience them, and that's good because they're not fun. So the question is, have you ever felt anxious or had an anxiety attack before? And if so, how have you managed it? I've never had an anxiety attack before until today, and it honestly horrified me. They're not fun, no. So my response was, they suck, huh? I have definitely encountered them. Honestly, they are each unique for me. Sometimes it's more like I'm dissociated, outside my body, not really present. Sometimes it's more, I just feel compelled to act in a really urgent way. Otherwise, insert vague, overwhelming, impending doom feeling. I don't usually feel like I'm in mortal danger. I don't feel like I'm dying, which is a very distressing feeling that some people will experience when they have a panic attack or anxiety attack. I feel like I have to fix something. Like I am compulsively driven to fix things. And that could be a person who's being aggressive toward me. It could be, um, for me, one time it was I need to fix an object that was given to me that was broken. Um, you know, it could be things that seem like they're not at all threatening, not at all life threatening, but they just make my brain go into that mode for whatever reason. Like I understand the reasons behind it, but we don't need to go into too much detail about that. Everyone's reasons are their own. Get that one? Yep, this now, at least, yeah. Only ever had one bad attack, and I can't really remember what it was about, what happened, etc. I just know I had a moment where I kind of broke away, and from it was like, oh, that's what this is like. Yeah. It can be like that, where you kind of like, you don't really remember what it was about because it wasn't necessarily about like a life threatening situation. It was just your brain latched onto this being a very serious situation that it needs to respond to in that very urgent way. So it's basically like you're activating your survival mechanism. It's almost like a superpower level. Like you're shutting down your digestive system, you're sending energy to your big muscles so you can fight or flight or whatever your response is. You know, you're preparing, your body is physically preparing for the challenge of whatever you're facing. And it feels really awful. Usually it feels terrible. Um, so yeah, I definitely am familiar with that. Um, but yeah, generally for me, it's more of a like general impending doom rather than I am physically in danger. Even if I am physically in danger, I don't feel so focused on my own body or my own mortality. I'm more focused on uh, compelled to fix something, to do something, to resolve the situation, resolve the conflict. Body goes 1v1 me coward, yeah. Like you're not in control of your own body. Yes, it is scary, definitely. How I manage them now is when I feel myself getting agitated, I will try to ground myself. The 5 4 3 2 1 grounding technique works well for me. That would be acknowledging 5 things that we can see, 4 things we can touch, 3 we can hear, 2 we can smell, and 1 we can taste. I mentioned in an earlier question, if you have some strong taste like a breath mint, like an Altoid, um, think there were in New Zealand there were these really strong mints called like fisherman's choice or something like mints. Or like really sour candy, some really strong flavor can really bring you back from that feeling. That can help. Even if you just have like water on you, just try to taste the water, try to focus on the taste of the water, the sensation on your tongue. That one works pretty well for me. I've had some good practice at it. Practicing when you're not in an agitated state, when you're calm, can also help you to be able to practice it more easily when you are in need of it. Smelling salts waking you up? Yeah, if you have a strong smell, that can help too. Yeah, definitely. Where was I? There's lots of different options. There's two types of grounding. One's physical, which is focusing on one's senses, like the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding, and mental grounding, which focuses our minds on the tasks such as a puzzle, like Sudoku, or a word jumble, listing everything one can think of in a category like mammals, flowers, types of hot drinks, and etc. If grounding is not accessible to us, sometimes the panic sets in too fast. We can also try to do something to self-soothe. Some examples are imagining the voice or face of someone we love, reminding ourselves that this will pass and that we are doing our best, enjoying the company of a companion animal, listing a few of our favorite things from different categories such as food, plants, songs, books, movies, places, imagining our favorite place and recalling all the details such as smells, noises, time of day, temperature, objects in the location, and other details from memorable visits, and listening to music. It might also be helpful to do both, so ground and then self-soothe, or vice versa. Self-soothe to calm ourselves enough to access the grounding skills. It's a really good idea to practice these skills when you're calm, so that we will think to access them when we're getting anxious or panicking. It takes trial and error to figure out what works for each of us individually. But if we're already good at these exercises, it'll be much easier to practice when we need them. I hope that something I've said is helpful for you. Feel free to research online more grounding and self-soothing ideas. I wish you some deep rest and a moment of peace today. So yeah, that one's probably pretty helpful for people that have experienced that type of anxiety, and ideas for how you can address it, because it can make you feel really sorry, helpless. I was reading chat while talking. I shouldn't do that. Sounds like good advice. Hopefully it's helpful. Oh, I hope so. Grounding is very helpful. Yeah, I hope so. I find it helpful myself. But it does take some practice. It's good to have a thing to remind you. Some people also find having like a comfort object, like maybe like a smooth stone you can put in your pocket, or like a certain like if you're at home, maybe like a comfort blanket. Like I have a favorite blanket. Vivian actually tuckled a hole in it when she was a kitten. I did patch it up with some embroidery thread, because it was like a big hole, like maybe the size of a quarter. It was huge. But yeah, it's my purple fluffy favorite blanket. I have it on my bed at night, and when I feel like I need some comfort, I might snuggle on the sofa with it. And Vivian likes cuddling under it now that she no longer tries to nurse on it. So the next one's like a more of a cozy question. So what's your ideal vacation/lazy day? Waking up with my cat at my feet after sleeping until mid-morning. I like sleeping in a little. Enjoying a leisurely breakfast, checking my garden, and enjoying my hobbies: gardening, baking, DIY, writing, reading, and video games.
catching up with friends and spending quality time with Vint and my cat Vivian. Maybe some Japanese food for dinner. Thanks for the question. It was nice to dream up a ideal day. You're doing well. Lazy cat day, yeah. I love my cat. She's the best. She's literally the best. Another short one. Advocacy is importance of developing the whole of oneself. So that was a buff suggestion. I did add that to my list. That's quite a broad topic, but I think I can craft it into a buff. I've definitely touched on that a few times. It's definitely a good one. This one is a bit heavier, but I think it's something we're equipped to handle on stream. That time we're almost coming up 3 hours. It's a pretty good amount of stream. Okay. So this one is about social isolation. I feel like I'm drifting away from my friends I worked so hard to make. It's no one's fault. We're all anxious and going through life stuff. But it doesn't make it feel any less lonely for me. When I reach out to hang out, I get the usual answer of, quote, sorry, I don't have time, end quote, which is fine. But it keeps happening with all my friends, and they hang out with each other just fine. It's not with me. I'm an introvert. Reaching out first crushes me so badly each time. It takes a huge toll on me because I don't handle rejection very well. It makes me feel that I'm not one of the quote likable end quote humans in the world, and it makes me lose my sense of self all over again. I don't make friends easily. Making new ones feels like traversing a minefield because I want to make friends with people who aren't going to emotionally blackmail me or narcissistic. What should I do? I've lost all hope and I just don't want for this life for me. It's too painful. Yeah, it's a sad one. So my answer, it does sound very painful. I'm so sorry you're dealing with all this. Introvert gang, I'm an introvert too. Believe it or not. I won't make any assumptions or try to diagnose anything, but a few things that you said stood out to me. You mentioned social anxiety, rejection sensitivity, and experience with abuse. You also mentioned being introverted. My understanding of introversion versus extroversion is that introverts recharge by quality time alone, doing things that we enjoy in our own company, and extroverts are the opposite, in that the company of others energize them and they feel drained from too much time alone. Introversion is not social anxiety, though I suspect more people with social anxiety identify as introverted. So, if I was in your position, and I have experienced something similar, I would look into seeking support for my anxiety, past negative experiences, and self esteem. If therapy is not something accessible to you for whatever reason, there are some good self help books in the library. I tend to recommend checking out the ones by people with qualifications in mental health and not just an MD or layperson. I cannot control the actions of others, whether they are receptive to my gestures of friendship or they reach out to me, but I can work on my mental health, which will make navigating social activities easier when it's in a good condition. I tend to put more energy into the friendships where I feel very comfortable, safe, and close to the person, as well as recognizing that they make effort to reach out to me. It took me time and work on myself to be able to feel connected, that I feel a connection that's strong, but I do believe it's possible for you as well. It's a good sign to me that you seem to have quite a lot of insight into yourself and what you're struggling with. I wish you all the best. So I know that answer is not really a quick fix, but the way that that person described their struggles, their past, their personality, it does seem to me that they have a lot of years of um, experiences. You know, they mentioned narcissistic
people, so they may have some history of abuse. They have a lot of baggage to work through, and I don't say that in a judgmental way. I have a lot of baggage too. I say that in a way of I get it. I'm right there with you. So I wanted to give them hope that they can change, but also realistic expectations that it will take work. Um, I feel that in the past, when I made friends with people, one of the red flags for me now is people who try to get very close to me very quickly. They can sometimes be a little bit emotionally volatile. So I try to be more cautious and let friendships be a slow build, because otherwise it can sometimes get into a situation where the other person makes a lot of assumptions about me because they don't know me very well. They make a lot of assumptions about my boundaries, and they end up crossing my boundaries, and then it's difficult to communicate with them because I don't know them well. They might take offense. It's just a lot to deal with getting too close to someone too quickly. So I try to let my friendships build over time, and over experiences with people. And I have made some very close, very precious friends over the past year or two, year and a half. I started streaming seriously in February of 2020. So, yeah, in 2 years? What, 19 months? How long is that? That's not quite 2 years. So, yeah, probably, I got affiliate in April. So, a couple of months after I started seriously streaming. 1 year, 10 months, 18 days. Yeah, so coming up on 2 years. Pretty close. Oh, Vivian. I think my first stream was actually in November or December of 2019. But that was like no avatar, just a disembodied voice.
By Jove!
Oh my. Yeah, yes. Thank you, Dreamer Owl. We shall have some librarian voice now. Vivienne, are you here to cuddle in the sleeve, or are you... No, she's merely passing by. How are you doing, Dreamer Owl? It's good to see you. Early 2021? Well, February 2021, I believe, was when I began to stream using my Vroid avatar. Baby Mage. Yes, this is a voice redeem. I've what? 4 of those? Well, 3. But one has a variation. The curse has a variation. It may be the curse of the valley in the urban area, or the more coastal area, as strikes me. I followed you immediately after Vint told me who you were when you popped into my Dark Souls stream. Yes, well, my first stream, I do believe, was via the PlayStation, PlayStation 4, I believe. Directly streaming, because I did not at that time have a computer for streaming. I was streaming directly through, yes, with a headset microphone. And then in December of 2019, I believe, I purchased the laptop, which I am using at this very moment to stream to you. And yes, then in February of the following year was when I became more committed to streaming. A little sickly today. Intense low back pain has forced you to stay quiet and rest. Other than that, all okay. Well, I do hope that your back feels better. I do hope you have some relief sometime soon. I know that everyone's issues are different, and you likely know your body well, but I find for myself that gentle walks do help me when I have low back pain. gentle stretching, also if appropriate. But yes, make sure that you do take good care of yourself, and I hope that you feel much better very soon. Powerful laptop? Well, yeah, so I have what is known as a gaming laptop. It is a couple of years old now, almost. Um, but for the most part, when I am streaming, I will use the console. So I have a Nintendo Switch and a PlayStation 5, um, which I use a capture card, and that connects to the laptop. So the game graphics, it is relying upon the consoles to run. When I do play PC games, then it does unfortunately rely upon the laptop as well as running the YouTube Studio, the OBS programs, all of the necessary software. So it is rather taxing on the small little computer here. But in future, I should like to eventually build myself a desktop PC for streaming, but it will take some time. We have other financial woes at the moment to do with our plumbing repairs and things, so we shall deal with those first. Nothing that we cannot afford, but yes, priorities. Felt like someone kicked me with a knife. Oh! Went to the doctor, I took medication, now I'm lying down. Well, that is good. I'm glad that you've been seen too, because very sharp low back pain all of a sudden could be an indication of something serious. So I'm glad that you have had a professional check you over. That is good. And I'm glad that you have the medication. Please take good care. Please feel better soon. All right. So I have my memory is foggy as to where I was in this question when I adopted this accent. I believe we completed this question, did we not? Yes. Yes. All right. Let us move along then. Ah, so this curious catter asked me about recommendations for psychology YouTubers. Now, over the years, I have followed and unsubscribed from various ones as their priorities changed. But these are the ones that currently I find to be respectful, informative, and science based. So, one that I especially enjoy is Dr. Tracy Marks. She has very informative and engaging content on a broad range of psychology topics. She does have a doctorate in psychology, so she is well qualified. The next one is specifically for childhood trauma and difficulty with family relationships, but Patrick Teagan, WIC LICSW, which is the licensed counselor, I believe that's the acronym for. Makes good videos mostly centered around recovering from childhood trauma and difficult family relationships. Thank you, Vint. And Dr. Julie, I've only seen some of her short videos, but they were quite illustrative. She's good at explaining mood disorders and things like that visually with visual aids. It's quite helpful. She has some good shorts about how to understand mental health conditions. I haven't seen many of her videos yet, though. Yes, and next is Anna Psychology. She is a doctoral student. And she has stated that in her videos, and enjoy her videos of different topics and her areas of research related to boundaries and relationships from mostly what I've seen. So she has done some research related to interpersonal relationships, casual intimacy, and things of that nature, which are quite interesting. And she talks about boundary setting and relational issues, how to know when is a good time to let go of a friendship, things like that. She's got quite a wealth of information on different areas in that sort of theme. And Psychology in Seattle, as Dr. Honda has done some good videos on analyzing relationships in fiction and current events in the media. And he does remain respectful to everyone involved, which is very important to me. There have been some other psychology YouTubers I have watched in the past who have pivoted their content somewhat more toward the sensational, the judgmental, the sarcastic, and that does not sit well with me. So I would no longer deign to recommend. Not at all. We want non-judgmental analysis and support. We would not want anyone to identify with those being analyzed and feel they are being judged themselves. That is not our goal here. It is, as they say about the library, bad vibes. Yes, quite. Not the vibe we are looking for. Now, someone was sharing a dream that they had. Unbiased person to talk to. Yes, well, we all have biases, whether we are conscious of them or not. A good sign is if someone is working actively upon identifying their biases and making certain that they are not exploiting any situation or any person. There does seem to be, in this day and age, a inclination toward exploiting personalities, exploiting celebrities. They are still human. Yes, they may be much removed from us in terms of their experiences of how they live their day-to-day lives and their wealth, their income. Disparity may be very, very large compared to our own, but they are still human, and they are still deserving of basic human respect. And I would not want for anyone who identifies with that celebrity, for whatever reason, to feel that they were themselves being judged. So it seems needless to make a mockery or be judgmental or any of these concerns. We need not go there. I've been freed. Glasses should vanishing. There we go. Freedom. I was thinking I'm going to start reading this question, then the time is going to run out partway through, and it's going to be awkward. Want someone who won't insult or judge you would be a better way to say it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I feel like people might not even be consciously aware that they feel like they're being judged when they see these, videos about celebrities and things. But it might just unconsciously, unsettle them, and they might feel defensive on behalf of the celebrity, or they might just feel just bad, just kind of lousy, and not really know why. So I just think that we don't need more of that in the world. We need less of that. So I try to steer clear of those types of sensationalized videos now. So this one is about dream. I just had a fascinating dream. Do you feel there's meaning behind dreams we experience? Sorry if the mic picked that up. I just moved the footstool. Or none whatsoever, and we should just acknowledge the ride. In my case, I had a filling breakfast and slipped back to sleep for a few more hours. The dream I had was short, but caught me off guard. I was in a foreign land where everyone was speaking a language I did not understand. Discussions were being had, arguments even, but I could not understand a single word. I just stood there, and it seemed they were talking about what appeared to be a stack of papers. Think a book with no cover. Suddenly, the stack of papers came to life and started flying around the room on its own as if it had a purpose. They flew into the arms of certain people as if to say goodbye to old friends. One by one, people held them, and eventually the papers flew into mine. And I cried for them, as if I were holding a friend I was about to lose. Then the papers flew in front of the last person and just dropped lifeless on the ground in front of them. They picked them up as if they as if you'd pick up anything else, and poof, I was awake. And then I cried again. Tears rolled down my face. I don't know what that was about, but it was an interesting journey, if a short one. I'm still wiping tears away as I type this. Don't know what to take from it, if there's anything to take from it, but I wonder, have you ever been affected by things you've experienced in dream state? How do you choose to perceive what you've witnessed on the other side? And crying is absolutely a normal experience after a dream that might have been distressing or moving. The brain actually has a hard time differentiating waking experiences from dreams. So, one mechanism that the brain uses to kind of make a more firm line between your dreaming experiences and your waking experiences, that it tries to forget your dreams. So, if you find that you can not remember your dreams very well, or they fade soon after you wake up, that's actually a normal process for your brain trying to delineate between the waking self and the sleeping self. Sorry, I'm getting dry mouth again. So my response, I think that I think with what we know about REM, which is rapid eye movement, the part of sleep where dreams/nightmares occur, related to memory formation and processing, I do think that dreams have some meaning to each of us personally and individually. I don't believe it's possible for others, especially not someone who doesn't know us or our individual psychology well, to interpret our dreams and divine meaning from them. I do think there's validity in considering what the unconscious mind might be trying to process when we recall our dreams. I have experienced various sleep disturbances my entire life, including night terrors, which are vivid nightmares that one does not remember, even though one seems to wake and even hold conversations, and recurrent nightmares. I believe that they serve a purpose and that they have changed over time, and they have changed over time as I have worked on my mental health. Now nightmares are less about helplessness and more about standing up for myself despite not always being able to overcome the threat. I believe that this is my unconscious mind indicating that I'm on the right path. Thanks for your question. Most of the time I don't dream, but when I do, and they are weird. Yeah, I mean, I think that from what we know about sleep research, if you're getting good quality sleep, you will be having several cycles of REM sleep. So there's different stages of sleep. You start out in a light stage of sleep, and then you go to a deeper stage, and then you have REM sleep, and I think there's a deeper stage, and then you go back into a lighter stage. And you'll go through that cycle a few times a night, maybe 4 to 6 times, I think. Depending on where you wake up in that cycle, you might feel refreshed. If you wake up in the deepest part of sleep, you might feel quite groggy when you wake up. If you wake up during the REM part of sleep, you might more easily remember your dreams. So I think that even if you don't remember, you probably did dream. You probably had the brain activity that would indicate dreaming, but your brain might just be very good at that mechanism of delineating between the waking and the sleeping self, so you don't remember them. You remember them sometimes. Some of those weird ones. Yeah. Sleep is really fascinating. Everything to do with the brain is really fascinating to me. So I think that getting on to 3.5 hours, I think I might be getting to a good length for my ability to keep talking constantly. But we'll do one more. This is more of a lighthearted one to end on. So someone said, stick 'em up. This is a song request. Tell me your favorite songs you're listening to. And then they did finger guns. Same, yeah, I don't remember a lot of dreams, but the ones I do, like, well, that's why I remember it, I guess. They go hard. Yeah, dreams are like that, huh? Some of them are forgettable, some of them are very not forgettable. I only remember when I'm having poor sleep, but it's getting disrupted a lot. Yeah.
Those ones that wake you up. So, all the ones I could think of were, I list the song names and then I list the artists. So, Only Skin, Good Intentions Paving Company, Sprout and the Bean, and Sawdust and Diamonds by Joanna Newsom. Budbuzz, Ohio, Pink Rabbits, I'm Easy to Find, So Far, So Fast, Don't Swallow the Cap, System Only Dreams in Total Darkness, I'll Still Destroy You, Dark Side of the Gym, and Slow Show by The National. One More Cup of Coffee, Sarah and Sad Eyed Lady of the Lowlands by Bob Dylan. Elena on the Wall, Rosemary, I'll Never Be Your Maggie May. Queen and the Soldier and the Room Off the Street by Suzanne Vega. Creep, Fake Plastic Trees, High and Dry, Karma Police, and No Surprises by Radiohead. And Drumming Song, Hurricane Drunk, Only for a Night, Shake It Out, and Never Let Me Go by Florence and the Machine. All I have in my pockets this morning. I have many more though. Yeah, that's some of the songs that I enjoy a lot. Sorry, just trying to shift positions. I've been in the same position for a while. I knocked the computer. But yeah, I think that was a good number of questions answered. I hope that was interesting for people. What's the ticker tape one of the National? Still waiting for you with ticker tape, that one? Let me check. I'm Easy to Find. Still waiting for you every night with ticker tape. Oh, that whole album is great. Comfy, yeah. Tea time with good advice and information. And if you want to read more of my Curious Cat questions, you can go and just look through all the ones I've answered. They're all publicly available on my profile there. You don't have to ask any questions if you don't want to. But you're welcome to if you do want to. But yeah, it's available for you to have a look through. Occasionally I will post one of my answers on my Twitter, just to remind people that my Curious Cat is there and available for them. But yeah, mostly I just enjoy engaging with people on Curious Cat itself and hanging out and chatting. Alright, I'm just having a look for who we can say hello to. Have my apprentice double check. Thank you, Mugs. Yeah, so tomorrow's stream is my birthday. I didn't have much planned. But I thought we could play some a cute game called Purring Quest, which is about being a cat. I enjoyed Stray so much, I want to be a cat again. That's a pretty short one. And then afterwards we might play the new and tasty version of Abe's Odyssey. That was a really nostalgic game for me. I spent so long trying to save all the Madokans in the factory when I was a little mageling, so it'll be fun to revisit and see how well I can do. New and Tasty has like a rewind function, which, oh my god, that's blasphemy. That makes it way too easy. So I don't know if I'll utilize that, but it's an option.
Um, so yeah, I think that's what we'll do tomorrow, unless something else comes to me. But it'd be nice to hang out and have a cozy chat about things that are important to people. Yeah. Thank you so much for engaging and talking, and chatting with me about stuff. Sorry, I'm trying to arrange the raid. I think we'll go and say hello to my rigger, who's actually also rigging my 2.0. I don't know if she's rigging it right now. Doing art right now. Let me double check. Oh, it's an ad. Do you know if Liao's rigging my model? She's not rigging? Okay. I want to spoil it. But yeah, if you'd like to come and say hello to Liao, I would appreciate it. It would be lovely to pick her out. But if you do have to rest or take care of things, I understand. Yeah, I'll see you sometime soon, and maybe tomorrow for my birthday stream. I think it'll be a cozy time. Thank you, everyone. Please take good care of yourselves. Bye for now. Thank you. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow.